A mafia king ruled Manhattan with ice in his veins, until he watched his untouchable assistant laugh across a candlelit table with another man. That single moment shattered years of control and unleashed a dangerous obsession he never saw coming. One jealous glance, one forbidden touch, one woman who could destroy everything he built. This is the story of Luca Moretti, the man who feared nothing except losing her. If you want to see how far jealousy can push a ruthless king, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Avi! Rain hammered the streets of Manhattan like punishment from a furious sky. Inside the glass tower of Moretti Global, Luca Moretti stood behind floor-to-ceiling windows watching the city bend beneath the storm. His reflection stared back at him, sharp suit, sharper jaw, eyes that could cut through steel. 34 years old and already a king, not the kind crowned in public, the kind whispered about in back rooms where deals were made and bodies occasionally disappeared. He didn't build his empire on luck. He built it on fear. The intercom on his desk buzzed. "Mr. Moretti, your 4 o'clock is here." Aurelia's voice, calm, professional, unshakable. Luca pressed the button without taking his eyes off the storm. "Send him in." The door opened behind him. Heavy footsteps crossed expensive carpet. Luca didn't turn around. He knew who it was by the weight of the walk alone. Marco Vitelli, one of his underbosses. A man who handled problems that couldn't be solved with lawyers or contracts. "We found him," Marco said quietly. "Where?" "Brooklyn. Warehouse off the canal. He's been hiding there 3 weeks." Luca finally turned. Marco stood near the desk like a soldier waiting for orders. Broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, the kind of loyalty you couldn't buy. "Is he alone?" Luca asked. "2 guys with him. Nobody important." Luca walked to his desk and sat down slowly. He picked up a pen and tapped it twice against the polished wood surface. The sound echoed in the silence. "Make it clean," Luca said. "No mess, no noise." Marco nodded once and turned to leave. "Marco." The underboss stopped at the door. "Make sure he understands why," Luca added, "before it ends." "Understood." The door closed. Luca sat back in his chair and exhaled slowly. Outside, lightning split the sky over the city. Thunder followed seconds later, rattling the windows. His phone vibrated on the desk. A text message. "Aurelia. Dinner reservation confirmed for 7 p.m. Location sent separately." Luca frowned. He hadn't asked her to make a dinner reservation. He texted back immediately. "Luca. What reservation?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Aurelia. My personal reservation. I thought I turned off calendar sync. Sorry for the confusion." Luca stared at the screen. Aurelia never made mistakes. She ran his entire operation with terrifying precision, scheduled every meeting, filtered every call, anticipated problems before they materialized. She knew his schedule better than he did. She knew his enemies, his allies, his secrets, and she never ever mixed personal business with work. He typed slowly. "Luca. Dinner with who?" The 3 dots took longer this time. "Aurelia. A friend." Luca's jaw tightened. He set the phone down and stood up, walked back to the windows, watched rain hammer the glass. A friend. He didn't like that answer. Aurelia had worked for him for 3 years. In that time, she had become indispensable. More than an assistant, more than an employee. She was the only person in his world who wasn't afraid of him. The only one who looked him in the eye and told him the truth, even when it wasn't what he wanted to hear. She had also become the only person capable of distracting him. Luca hated distractions. He grabbed his phone again and called her directly. She picked up on the second ring. "Yes, Mr. Moretti? Where's the dinner?" A pause. "It's personal," she said carefully. "I didn't ask if it was personal. I asked where." Another pause, longer this time. He could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, controlled, measured. She was deciding how much to tell him. "Bologna," she finally said. "The Italian place on West 10th. Luca knew the restaurant. Expensive, intimate. The kind of place where people went when they wanted privacy. "Cancel it," he said. Silence. "Excuse me?" Her voice changed, no longer the polished assistant, something sharper underneath. "Cancel the reservation, Aurelia." With all due respect, Mr. Moretti, this has nothing to do with work. Everything you do has something to do with work. That's not fair. I don't care about fair. He heard her exhale slowly, not quite a sigh, more like controlled frustration. I'm going to dinner, she said quietly. If you need me after hours, I'll have my phone. Then she hung up. Luca stood there holding the phone, staring at the rain-soaked city below. His hand clenched around the device hard enough that the case creaked. No one hung up on him. No one. But at 6:30 that evening, Luca sat in the back of his black town car 3 blocks from Bologna. Rain still hammered the streets. His driver Vincent waited silently behind the wheel. The man had worked for Luca for 8 years and knew better than to ask questions. Luca told himself he was there for security reasons. Aurelia worked closely with him. She knew too much. If someone wanted leverage against him, she was an obvious target. Watching her was just smart business. That's what he told himself. The truth sat darker in his chest. At 6:55, a cab pulled up in front of Bologna. The back door opened and Aurelia stepped out onto the wet sidewalk. She wore a black dress that hugged her frame and heels that made her legs look impossibly long. Her dark hair fell loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in the tight bun she always wore at the office. Luca's breath caught. She looked nothing like the controlled, untouchable assistant who ran his empire. She looked like a woman going to meet someone who mattered. A man stepped out of the restaurant entrance. Tall, well-dressed, smiling. He held an umbrella over Aurelia's head as she approached. Said something that made her laugh. Then he touched her lower back gently as he guided her inside. Luca's vision narrowed. His hand moved to the door handle. Boss? Vincent's voice cut through the haze. Careful. Uncertain. Luca forced himself to stop, forced his hand to drop, forced air into his lungs. Wait here, he said. You going inside? Just wait. Luca climbed out of the car into the rain. He didn't bother with an umbrella. Walked straight to the restaurant entrance. The hostess recognized him immediately, eyes widening, spine straightening. Mr. Moretti, we weren't expecting... Table for one, he said. Somewhere quiet. She nodded quickly and grabbed a menu, led him through the dimly lit restaurant toward the back. As they walked, Luca scanned the room, found her immediately. Aurelia sat near the window. The man across from her was leaning forward, saying something that made her smile. Not the polite smile she used at work, a real one. The kind that reached her eyes. The hostess stopped at a small table in the corner. Private, shadowed, perfect. Is this acceptable, Mr. Moretti? Fine. She set down the menu and disappeared. Luca sat with his back to the wall, eyes locked on Aurelia's table 20 feet away. She hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on the man in front of her. The stranger said something else. Aurelia laughed again, soft and genuine. Then the man reached across the table and touched her hand. Just a light touch. Fingers brushing fingers. But it was enough. Something dark and violent uncoiled inside Luca's chest. His hands clenched into fists beneath the table. His jaw locked so tight, his teeth ached. He stood up, walked across the restaurant, stopped directly beside their table. Aurelia looked up. Her smile vanished the instant she saw him. Shock. Confusion. Then something that looked like anger flashed across her face. Mr. Moretti, she said carefully. What are you... Who is this? Luca interrupted. His voice came out too quiet, too controlled, the way it always did right before he did something violent. The man across from her straightened in his seat, looked between them uncertainly. I'm sorry, the stranger said. Do we know each other? Luca ignored him completely, kept his eyes locked on Aurelia. I asked you a question. Aurelia's expression hardened. She stood slowly, setting her napkin on the table. Excuse us, she said to her date. Then she grabbed Luca's arm and pulled him toward the exit. They stepped outside into the rain. The storm had gotten worse, wind whipping water sideways, thunder rolling overhead. Aurelia released his arm and turned on him. What the hell are you doing here? She demanded. Making sure you're safe. Safe? She laughed bitterly. You followed me to a restaurant because you're concerned about my safety? You work for me. You know things. That makes you a target. That's bullshit, and you know it. Luca stepped closer. Rain soaked through his suit jacket, dripped down his face. He didn't care. Who is he? Luca asked again. None of your business. Everything about you is my business. Aurelia's eyes narrowed. I don't belong to you, Luca. Hearing his name instead of Mr. Moretti hit him harder than he expected. She only used his first name when she was furious, or when they were alone late at night working and the barriers between boss and employee dissolved into something neither of them acknowledged. You think I don't know that? Luca said. His voice dropped lower, rougher. You think I don't know you could walk away from me tomorrow and there's nothing I could do to stop you? Then why are you here? Because he stopped. The words caught in his throat. Because watching you smile at another man felt like taking a bullet. Because the thought of someone else touching you makes me want to burn this entire city down. Because I can't stop thinking about you and it's destroying every piece of control I've built my life on. He couldn't say any of it. Aurelia stared at him, waiting. Water dripped from her hair. Her dress clung to her body. She looked like a drowned angel standing in the storm. Go back inside, Luca finally said. Finish your dinner. Luca, sit. Go. She hesitated, then turned and walked back into the restaurant without another word. Luca stood in the rain watching her disappear. His chest felt hollowed out, empty, like someone had reached inside and carved out everything vital. Vincent pulled the car up to the curb. Luca climbed into the back seat, soaked and shaking. Not from cold, from something far worse. Where to, boss? Vincent asked quietly. Luca didn't answer, just stared through the rain-streaked window at the restaurant, at the golden light inside, at Aurelia sitting down across from the stranger again, at her trying to smile. He watched until they finished dinner, watched the man pay the check, watched them stand and walk toward the exit together, watched the stranger hail a cab for her, watched him lean in close and say something, watched Aurelia nod, watched the man kiss her cheek before she climbed into the cab. Luca's hands clenched so hard his nails cut into his palms. Follow the cab, he told Vincent. The driver hesitated. Boss, follow it. They pulled into traffic 3 cars behind. The cab wound through Manhattan streets slick with rain. 15 minutes later, it stopped in front of a modest apartment building in the West Village. Aurelia climbed out, paid the driver, and hurried inside out of the storm. Luca watched her building for another hour, watched lights turn on in a 3rd-floor window, watched her shadow move behind curtains, watched until he couldn't stand it anymore. Take me home, he said. The next morning, Aurelia walked into the office at exactly 8 o'clock like nothing had happened. She wore her usual armor, black suit, hair pulled back, expression professionally neutral. She set coffee on Luca's desk without meeting his eyes. Your 9 o'clock call to reschedule, she said. I moved him to Thursday. The contracts from the Singapore deal need your signature. And Marco left a message that the Brooklyn situation is handled. Luca stared at her. She still wouldn't look at him. Aurelia. Is there anything else you need, Mr. Moretti? The formal distance in her voice cut deeper than any blade. We need to talk about last night, Luca said. There's nothing to talk about. I shouldn't have followed you. No, you shouldn't have. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were hard, unforgiving. You crossed a line, she said quietly. I know. It can't happen again. Luca stood up slowly, walked around the desk until only a few feet separated them. Aurelia held her ground, but he saw her swallow, saw the slight tremor in her hands before she clasped them behind her back. Who was he? Luca asked. I told you. His name, Aurelia. She stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled. David. His name is David. How long have you known him? A few months? Are you seeing him again? Her jaw tightened. That's not your concern. Answer the question. Yes, she said. Friday night. We're having dinner again. The words landed like a physical blow. Luca's chest tightened. His vision tunneled. Every instinct screamed at him to forbid it, to lock her in this building and make sure no other man ever touched her again. Instead, he stepped back. Fine, he said. Aurelia blinked, surprised. Fine? You're right, it's not my business. The lie tasted like acid. Just make sure you keep your phone on, in case I need you. Something flickered across her face. Disappointment, maybe. Or relief. He couldn't tell. Of course, Mr. Moretti. She turned and walked out of his office. The door closed softly behind her. Luca stood there alone in the silence. His reflection stared back at him from the dark windows, a man who ruled an empire but couldn't control the one thing that mattered. He pulled out his phone and called Marco. "Boss? I need you to run a background check," Luca said. "Full workup. Name is David. I'll send you a photo." "What am I looking for?" "Everything." Luca hung up, sat down at his desk, opened his laptop and pulled up the security footage from Bologna's exterior cameras. Found the moment David kissed Aurelia's cheek before she left, screenshotted the man's face, sent it to Marco, then sat back and stared at the image on his screen. This was insane. He knew it was insane. Aurelia had every right to see whoever she wanted. She didn't owe him anything beyond professional competence. But knowing that didn't stop the jealousy from eating him alive. Friday came too fast. Luca spent the entire day distracted, snapped at people during meetings, made decisions without his usual careful deliberation. By 6 o'clock, Marco appeared in his doorway with a folder. "The background check you wanted," Marco said. Luca grabbed it immediately, flipped it open. David Chen, 32. Investment analyst at Goldman Sachs, Princeton graduate. No criminal record, no debts, no red flags whatsoever. Perfect. Luca hated him. "Anything else?" Marco asked carefully. "No, that's all." Marco hesitated. "Boss, if you don't mind me saying, I do mind." The underboss nodded and left. Luca sat alone in his office as the sun set over Manhattan. Aurelia had left an hour ago. Told him she was taking a personal evening. Hadn't met his eyes when she said it. At 7:15, Luca's phone buzzed. A notification from the tracking app on Aurelia's company phone. He'd installed it months ago for security, told himself it was just precaution. Now he watched the little dot on the map move through the city, watched it stop at a restaurant in Soho, watched it stay there. At 7:30, Luca stood up, grabbed his jacket, walked out of the office past his night security without explanation, took the elevator down to the underground garage and climbed into his car, drove to Soho, parked across the street from the restaurant, and waited. This was worse than before. Worse than following her the first time. This was obsession. This was losing control. Everything he'd spent his entire life avoiding, but he couldn't stop. At 9 o'clock, Aurelia and David emerged from the restaurant. The rain had cleared. The night air was cool and sharp. They walked slowly down the sidewalk together. David said something. Aurelia laughed. That sound. Luca's hand strangled the steering wheel. They stopped at the corner. David turned to face her, reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, intimate. Aurelia didn't pull away. Luca's vision went red. He shoved the car door open and crossed the street in 5 long strides. David saw him first, eyes widening in confusion. Then Aurelia turned. "Luca!" He grabbed David by the collar and slammed him against the brick wall. The investment analyst gasped, hands coming up defensively. "Luca, stop!" Aurelia shouted. "Who the hell are you?" Luca snarled at David. "What do you want from her?" I don't. Luca, let him go." Aurelia grabbed his arm, tried to pull him back. "Let him go right now." Luca released David. The man stumbled sideways, breathing hard, eyes wide with fear. "Leave," Luca told him. "Now." David looked at Aurelia. "Are you—" "I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just go, please." The analyst backed away, then turned and hurried down the street without looking back. Aurelia rounded on Luca. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded. "What's wrong with me?" Luca's voice came out raw, broken. "You want to know what's wrong with me?" "Yes." "I can't stop thinking about you." The confession exploded out of him. "Every second of every day. I see you with him and it feels like I'm dying. I watch you smile at him and I want to destroy everything around me until you're looking at me instead." Aurelia stared at him, shock painted across her face. "I've killed people," Luca continued. His hands were shaking. "I've built an empire on violence and fear. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel afraid. I don't feel anything." He stepped closer. "Except when I look at you." The words hung between them in the cool night air. "Luca," Aurelia whispered. "You can't—" "I know," he said. "I know I can't. I know this is insane. I know I have no right to feel this way, but I do." She shook her head slowly. This isn't real. You're possessive. You don't like anyone taking what belongs to you. You don't belong to me. Then what is this? Luca looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman who had somehow become the center of his entire world without him realizing it. The woman who saw all his darkness and never flinched. The woman whose absence felt like suffocation. It's not possession, he said quietly. Then what? He couldn't say the word. Not out loud. Not yet. But it burned in his chest like a brand. Go home, Aurelia, he said instead. Luca, please. She hesitated, then turned and walked away. Luca watched her disappear into the night, watched until he couldn't see her anymore. Then he pulled out his phone and called Marco. I need you to arrange something, Luca said. What kind of something? A message for David Chen. Make it clear he stays away from Aurelia. How clear? Very, but no physical contact, just words. Marco was quiet for a moment. Boss, are you sure? Do it. Luca hung up, leaned against the brick wall where he'd slammed David moments ago, his heart hammered against his ribs. His hands still shook. He was losing control. And for the first time in his life, Luca Moretti didn't know how to get it back. The message was delivered Monday morning. David Chen called Aurelia at 10:15. Luca watched through his office window as she answered, watched her expression change from confusion to horror, watched her hang up and stare at her phone. 30 seconds later, she stormed into his office without knocking. What did you do? She demanded. Luca looked up from his laptop. I don't know what you're talking about. David just called me terrified. He said 2 men showed up at his apartment last night and told him if he ever contacted me again, they'd make sure he regretted it. Sounds like he should listen. Aurelia slammed her hands on his desk. You had him threatened? I had him warned. What's the difference? One is a promise. One is advice. She stared at him like she didn't recognize him. You can't do this, Luca. You can't control my life. I'm keeping you safe. From what? A perfectly nice man who wanted to take me to dinner? From anyone who might hurt you. He wasn't going to hurt me. Luca stood up slowly, walked around the desk, stopped close enough that he could smell her perfume, see the fury in her eyes. You don't know that, he said quietly. And you do? I know people. I know how they think. I know what they want. And I know when someone is dangerous. David isn't dangerous. You are. The words hit like bullets. Aurelia's expression softened slightly. Do you hear yourself? You're threatening innocent people because you're jealous. That's not protection, Luca. That's obsession. I know. She blinked. What? I know it's obsession, he said. I know it's wrong. I know I'm losing my mind over you, and it doesn't make sense, and I can't stop it. Aurelia took a step back. Her hands trembled. This can't happen, she whispered. Why not? Because you're my boss. Because you're dangerous. Because this whole thing is insane. Then quit. She stared at him. What? Quit, Luca repeated. Walk away. Leave this job and never look back. Then I won't be your boss anymore, and we can figure out what this is without that complication. And what about the danger? What about your empire? I'll protect you. You can't protect me from yourself. The truth of it hung between them. Aurelia closed her eyes. I need time. I need to think. Take all the time you need. She nodded, turned toward the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. For what it's worth, she said without looking back, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you either. Then she walked out. Luca stood frozen in his office. Her words echoed in his head. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you either. His phone buzzed. A text from Marco. Marco. The Chen situation is handled. He won't be a problem. Luca deleted the message, sat down at his desk, stared out at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere in this city, Aurelia was trying to figure out if falling for a monster was worth the risk. And Luca realized with terrifying clarity that he would do anything, destroy anyone, to make sure the answer was yes, even if it destroyed them both. 3 days passed like walking through broken glass. Aurelia came to work every morning at exactly 8 o'clock. Set coffee on Luca's desk without meeting his eyes. Delivered reports in a voice so professionally neutral it felt like ice water. then disappeared back to her office down the hall where she stayed until the building emptied at night. Luca let her have the distance, told himself she needed space to think, told himself patience was the smart play. But every hour she stayed silent felt like dying slowly. He caught himself watching her through the glass walls of his office, watching the way she tucked hair behind her ear when she concentrated, the way she bit her lower lip when reviewing contracts, the way her fingers moved across her keyboard like she was playing piano. He memorized things he'd never paid attention to before. The exact shade of her coffee, 2 creams, no sugar. The way she always wore silver jewelry, never gold. How she kicked off her heels under her desk when she thought no one was looking. It was pathological. It was consuming him. On Thursday afternoon, Marco appeared in Luca's doorway, looking uncomfortable. "We need to talk," the underboss said. Luca glanced up from the contracts he'd been staring at without reading for the past hour. "What is it?" Marco stepped inside and closed the door. "It's about Aurelia." Luca's entire body went rigid. "What about her?" "The men are talking." "What men?" "All of them." Marco shifted his weight. "They've noticed you've been different lately. Distracted. They're wondering if there's a problem." "There's no problem." "Boss, you threatened an investment analyst because he took your assistant to dinner. That's not nothing." Luca stood up slowly, walked to the windows overlooking the city. His reflection stared back at him, a man who looked exactly the same on the outside while everything inside burned to ash. "Are they questioning my leadership?" Luca asked quietly. "No, they're questioning your judgment." "Those are the same thing." Marco was silent for a moment, then said carefully, "They think she's a weakness. They think someone could use her against you." Luca's hands clenched into fists. "Let them try." "That's what I'm worried about." Luca turned, looked at his most trusted soldier. "You think I'm making a mistake." "I think you're in love with her," Marco said bluntly. "And in our world, that's the most dangerous mistake you can make." The word hung in the air between them. Love. Luca had avoided thinking it, avoided saying it, as if not naming it would somehow make it less real. "I can handle it," Luca said. "Can you? Because from where I'm standing, you're unraveling." "I said I can handle it." Marco stared at him, then nodded slowly. "All right, boss, but just so you know, if she becomes a liability, the men will expect you to deal with it." "She's not a liability." "Not yet." Marco left. Luca stood alone in his office, watching the city below, watching millions of people living normal lives, going to normal jobs, having normal relationships that didn't require armed guards and background checks and constant fear. He'd never wanted that life before, never even considered it possible. But standing there thinking about Aurelia, he felt the first crack of doubt in the foundation he'd built everything on. Friday evening, Aurelia knocked on his office door at 6:30. Luca looked up. She stood in the doorway wearing her coat, purse over her shoulder. Her expression was carefully neutral. "I'm leaving," she said. "Okay." She hesitated. "Can we talk before I go?" Luca's pulse kicked up. "Of course." She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Walked to the center of the room but didn't sit. Just stood there looking at him like she was trying to solve an impossible equation. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you said, about everything." Luca waited, his heart hammered against his ribs. "This can't work," Aurelia continued. "Us, whatever this is, it can't happen." The words hit like bullets. Luca forced himself to stay still, stay controlled. "Why not?" he asked quietly. "Because I know who you are, Luca. I know what you do. I've worked for you for 3 years. I've seen the people who come into this building scared. I've fielded calls from men who sound terrified just talking to me because they know I work for you. That's business. It's violence. It's control. It's fear." She wrapped her arms around herself. "And I can't be part of that. I can't love someone who—" She stopped, closed her eyes. "Who what?" Luca pressed. "Who hurts people," she finished quietly. Luca stood up, walked around his desk slowly. Aurelia tracked his movement but didn't back away. "You think I'm a monster," he said. "I think you're dangerous. I've never hurt you." "Not yet." The accusation landed like a physical blow. Luca stopped 2 feet away from her, close enough to smell her perfume. See the way her chest rose and fell with quick, shallow breaths. "I would never hurt you," he said. Each word came out rough, broken. "I would burn this entire city down before I let anyone touch you, including myself." That's the problem, Luca. You don't see how terrifying that is. You don't understand that kind of obsession isn't love. It's possession. Then what do you want from me? "I want you to let me go." Silence filled the office. Outside, the city lights glowed against the darkening sky. Inside, Luca felt something vital breaking apart. "Is that what you really want?" he asked. Aurelia looked at him. Her eyes were wet. "It's what needs to happen." "That's not what I asked." She turned away, walked to the windows, stared out at the skyline with her back to him. "I haven't stopped thinking about you either," she said quietly. "Since that night. Since you told me how you felt. I lie awake wondering what would happen if I just let myself fall." Luca moved behind her, close but not touching. "Then fall." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm scared." "Of me?" She turned. They were inches apart. Her eyes searched his face like she was memorizing every detail. "Of how much I want you," she whispered. "Despite everything I know, despite every logical reason to run, I still want you, and it terrifies me." Luca's breath caught. His hands came up slowly, giving her time to move away, to stop him, and cupped her face gently. She didn't pull back, just stared at him with those devastated eyes. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I've never felt like this. I don't know how to navigate it. I don't know how to be anything except what I am." "Then we're both lost." "Maybe." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "Or maybe we figure it out together." Aurelia closed her eyes, leaned into his touch for just a moment, then stepped back. "I need more time," she said. Luca's hands dropped. "How much time?" "I don't know." "Aurelia, please don't push. I need to think clearly, and I can't do that when you're looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm the only thing in the world that matters." She grabbed her purse, walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle. "For what it's worth," she said without turning around, "if you were anyone else, this would be easy." Then she left. Luca stood in his empty office staring at the closed door. His chest felt hollowed out, his hands shook. He'd faced down armed men without flinching, stared death in the face a dozen times without blinking. But watching Aurelia walk away felt like the most dangerous thing he'd ever survived. Keats. The weekend crawled past like torture. Luca tried to work, couldn't focus. Tried to sleep, couldn't stop thinking about her. Saturday night he stood on his penthouse balcony, overlooking Manhattan with a glass of whiskey he didn't drink, wondering if she was awake somewhere in the city thinking about him too. Sunday morning his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Moretti." Heavy breathing on the other end, then a familiar voice. "Mr. Moretti, this is David Chen." Luca's entire body went cold. "How did you get this number?" "I looked it up. I needed to talk to you." "We have nothing to discuss." "It's about Aurelia." Luca's hand clenched around the phone. "What about her?" "I wanted you to know the truth about why I was seeing her." "I don't care why." "Her cousin set us up," David interrupted. "Aurelia's cousin Emma thought she was working too much, thought she needed to get out more. So she asked me to take Aurelia to dinner, as a favor." Luca froze. "What?" "We weren't dating. We were never dating. I was just being a friend, trying to help her relax." David paused. "She talked about you the whole time." The world tilted. "What did she say?" Luca asked quietly. "That her boss was impossible. Brilliant, but impossible. That she'd never met anyone like you, that working for you was the hardest thing she'd ever done, and also the only thing that made sense anymore." Luca couldn't breathe. "I told her she should quit if you made her that miserable," David continued. "She said she couldn't. When I asked why, she just looked at me and said, because I'd miss him too much." Silence stretched across the line. "I'm calling because those men who showed up at my apartment scared the hell out of me," David said. but also because I think you should know. She's not trying to move on from you. She's trying to figure out if she can survive staying. Why are you telling me this? Because despite the fact that you're clearly insane, she deserves to be happy. And for some reason, you make her happy. David exhaled. Don't waste that. The line went dead. Luca stood on his balcony staring at the phone in his hand. Everything he thought he understood about the past 2 weeks flipped inside out. She wasn't dating David. She was trying to escape Luca, trying and failing. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. 20 minutes later, Luca stood outside Aurelia's apartment building in the West Village. It was barely 9 a.m. on a Sunday. He had no plan, no script, just the truth burning in his chest. He pressed the buzzer for her unit. Static crackled. Then her voice, thick with sleep. Hello? It's me. Long pause. Luca? Can I come up? It's Sunday morning. I know. I'm sorry. I need to see you. Another pause. Then the door buzzed open. Luca took the stairs 2 at a time. 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. He knocked. The door opened. Aurelia stood there in an oversized sweater and leggings, hair falling loose around her shoulders, no makeup, eyes still soft from sleep. She looked nothing like the polished professional who ran his empire. She looked real. What are you doing here? She asked. David called me. Her eyes widened. What? He told me the truth about the dinners, about your cousin setting you up. Aurelia's face flushed. She stepped back from the door. You should come inside. Luca walked into her apartment. It was small, cozy, books everywhere, a lived-in warmth that felt nothing like his sterile penthouse. She closed the door and turned to face him. I'm sorry, she said. I should have told you from the beginning, but you were already acting so jealous, and I didn't know how to explain without making it worse. You have nothing to apologize for. I let you think I was dating him. Because I was being insane, Luca said, following you, threatening him. You had every right to tell me whatever you wanted. Aurelia wrapped her arms around herself. Why did he call you? To tell me you talked about me, the whole time you were with him. She closed her eyes. Damn it. Is it true? Luca, is it true that you can't stop thinking about me? That working for me is the only thing that makes sense anymore? She looked at him. Vulnerable. Exposed. Yes. Luca crossed the room in 3 strides, stopped inches from her. His hands came up to cup her face, and this time she leaned into the touch immediately. Then stop fighting this, he said. Stop trying to logic your way out of what we both feel. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You don't understand. I understand that I'm falling apart without you, Luca interrupted. His voice came out raw, desperate. I understand that every second you're not near me feels like suffocating. I understand that I would give up everything, the business, the power, all of it, if it meant I could keep you. Aurelia's breath hitched. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Luca wiped them away with his thumbs. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. What if we destroy each other? Then we'll burn together. She laughed through the tears. That's not comforting. I don't have comforting words, Aurelia. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be the man you deserve. But I know I can't walk away from you, and I know you can't walk away from me either. She stared up at him. Her hands came up and fisted in his shirt. This is insane, she said. I know. We'll probably destroy each other. Probably. I'm still terrified. Good. Luca leaned down until their foreheads touched. Fear means it matters. Fear means it's real. Aurelia pulled him closer. If we do this, if we really do this, you can't lie to me. Ever. I need to know what I'm stepping into. I'll tell you everything. And you can't treat me like property. I'm not one of your possessions. I know. And if it gets too dangerous, if being with you puts me in real danger, you have to let me go. Luca's jaw tightened. No. Luca, I'll keep you safe. Whatever it takes, but I won't let you go. Not anymore. She searched his face, looking for the lie, the crack. The proof that this was just obsession dressed up as something real, but all she found was the truth. Okay, she whispered. Okay? We'll try. We'll see what happens. Relief crashed through Luca so powerfully his knees nearly buckled. He pulled her against his chest and buried his face in her hair. She wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. They stood there in her small apartment as Sunday morning light filtered through the windows. Two people who had no business being together, clinging to each other like drowning victims who'd finally found something solid to grab. I need you to promise me something, Aurelia said against his chest. Anything. Don't make me regret this. Luca pulled back, looked down at her. I promise. She stood on her toes and kissed him, soft, tentative, like testing if something this fragile could survive. Luca kissed her back slowly, carefully, pouring everything he couldn't say into the gentle pressure of his mouth against hers. When they finally pulled apart, Aurelia smiled for the first time in days. You should probably go, she said, before the neighbors see the terrifying Mafia boss in my hallway and call the police. Let them, Luca said, but he stepped back anyway. I'll see you tomorrow? At the office? And after? Dinner? Just us? That sounds suspiciously like a date, Mr. Moretti. It is a date, Miss Hayes. She laughed. The sound filled her small apartment with warmth. Luca memorized it, filed it away with all the other details he'd been collecting about her. He left before he could talk himself into staying. Walked down the stairs and out into the bright Sunday morning, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. Everything was going to be different now. Everything was going to be complicated. But for the first time in his life, Luca Moretti had something worth protecting that wasn't built on fear. Monday morning started differently. Aurelia walked into Luca's office at 8 o'clock and set coffee on his desk the way she always did. But this time, when he looked up, she smiled, small, private, just for him. Good morning, Mr. Moretti. Good morning, Miss Hayes. The formal names felt different now, like an inside joke, a secret they carried between them. Your 9 o'clock is here, she said. The contractors for the Brooklyn project. Cancel it, she blinked. What? Cancel everything today, clear my schedule. Why? Because I'm taking you to breakfast. Aurelia glanced toward the door. Luca, we're at the office. I don't care. People will talk. Let them. He stood up and walked around the desk, stopped close enough to smell her perfume. I'm done hiding this. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. What does right look like? You, me, out in public, no more secrets? Fear flickered across her face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She searched his eyes, then nodded slowly. Okay, let me just... The office door burst open. Marco stood in the doorway. His expression was dark, urgent. Boss, we have a problem. Luca's entire demeanor shifted. The softness disappeared. The king returned. What kind of problem? Romano's nephew, he's making noise about the waterfront deal, says we cut him out unfairly. Romano knew the terms. He's not listening. He's rallying support. Says if you don't renegotiate, there's going to be consequences. Luca's jaw tightened. Vincent Romano ran one of the smaller families in Brooklyn. His nephew Tony was an ambitious hothead who'd been pushing for more territory for months. Set up a meeting, Luca said. Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. Boss, this could get ugly. I'll handle it. Marco glanced at Aurelia, then back at Luca. You sure that's smart? Given everything? The implication hung heavy in the air. Now that Luca had a weakness, Romano might try to exploit it. I said I'll handle it, Luca repeated. His voice dropped to that quiet, dangerous tone that made grown men step back. Marco nodded and left. Aurelia stood very still. Her face had gone pale. Is this going to be a problem? She asked quietly. No. Luca, don't lie to me. We just agreed. It's not a lie. Romano's nephew is an idiot. He'll bluster and threaten, and then he'll back down when he realizes I'm not negotiating. And if he doesn't back down, Luca looked at her. Then I'll make him. The words hung between them, a reminder of exactly who she'd decided to take a chance on. Aurelia nodded slowly. Okay. You're scared? Yes. Of me? Or of them? Both, she admitted. But I meant what I said yesterday. We're trying this, so I'm choosing to trust you. Luca pulled her close, kissed her forehead. I won't let anything happen to you. I know. But when she left his office minutes later, Luca saw the tension in her shoulders, the fear she was trying to hide, and he realized with cold clarity that loving her had just painted a target on her back. But the meeting with Romano was set for Tuesday night at a warehouse in Red Hook. Neutral territory. No weapons. 3 men each. Luca brought Marco and Vincent, Romano brought his nephew Tony, and 2 muscle-bound enforcers who looked like they bench-pressed trucks for fun. The warehouse was empty except for a metal table in the center. Harsh overhead lights cast long shadows across concrete floors. The air smelled like oil and rust. Luca sat down across from Romano. The old man had run Brooklyn for 20 years. Gray hair, tired eyes. A soldier from a different era when deals were made with handshakes instead of bullets. Vincent, Luca said. Good to see you. Wish it was under better circumstances, Romano replied. Tony Romano stood behind his uncle, mid-20s, designer suit that didn't quite hide the cheap haircut, hungry eyes. The kind of guy who watched too many mob movies and thought he understood how power worked. You know why we're here, Tony said before his uncle could speak. You cut us out of the waterfront deal. That was our territory. It was open territory, Luca corrected calmly. No one owned it. We had first claim. There's no such thing as first claim. There's only who moves fastest. Tony's jaw tightened. You can't just take whatever you want. I didn't take anything. I negotiated. I paid. I acquired legitimate business contracts. Bullshit. You muscled everyone out. I made better offers. That's called capitalism. Romano raised a hand. Tony, let me handle this. But the nephew ignored him, leaned forward over the table. You think you're untouchable, Moretti? You think no one's going to push back? Luca looked at him with cold, patient eyes. Are you pushing back? Maybe I am. Then you're an idiot. Tony's face flushed. You can't talk to me like that. I just did. Luca stood up slowly. Here's how this works. The waterfront deal is done. It's legally binding. It's mine. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the city planners who approved it. This isn't over, Tony growled. Yes, it is. Luca's voice dropped to that quiet, lethal tone. You want to make noise? Go ahead. Rally support. Call in favors. But understand something. The second you move against me, I will dismantle everything your family built brick by brick. Your uncle understands that, which is why he's going to talk sense into you before you do something incredibly stupid. Romano sighed heavily. Tony, sit down. Uncle Vinny, sit down. Tony glared at Luca but backed away from the table. Romano looked across at Luca with weary resignation. My nephew is ambitious, sometimes too ambitious. But he's family. I understand family loyalty, Luca said, which is why I'm being generous right now. But my generosity has limits. What do you want from us? Stay out of my way. Stop making noise about the waterfront. In return, I won't touch your operations in Brooklyn. That's it? That's it. Romano nodded slowly. We have a deal. He stood and extended his hand. Luca shook it. The old man's grip was still firm despite his age. Keep your nephew on a leash, Luca said quietly. Next time I won't be this patient. Understood. Romano left with his men. Tony shot Luca one last hateful glare before following his uncle out. Marco appeared beside Luca. That went better than expected. Romano's smart. He knows when to fold. And the nephew? The nephew's a problem waiting to happen. You want me to handle it? Luca thought about it. About Tony's hungry eyes, his reckless anger, the kind of ambition that got people killed. Not yet, Luca said, but keep eyes on him. If he makes a move, I want to know immediately. Done. They left the warehouse. Outside, rain had started falling again. The city lights reflected in puddles like scattered jewels. Luca's phone buzzed. A text from Aurelia. Aurelia, how did it go? He typed back quickly. Luca, fine. On my way to you now. Aurelia, I'll be waiting. Luca climbed into the back of his car, told Vincent to drive to Aurelia's apartment, leaned back against the leather seat, and closed his eyes. The meeting had gone well. Romano would keep his nephew in check. Everything was fine. So why did he have the feeling something was about to go very wrong? 2 weeks passed in a strange new rhythm. During the day, Luca and Aurelia maintained professional distance at the office, but the nights belonged to them. Quiet dinners, long walks through the city, hours spent talking about everything and nothing. Luca learned that Aurelia read mystery novels before bed, that she'd wanted to be a dancer when she was a kid, that her mother died when she was 16 and she'd raised herself after that. She learned that Luca taught himself to play piano, that he'd killed his first man at 19, that he'd never been in love before because he'd never allowed himself to be vulnerable enough to fall. They didn't sleep together yet. Both of them circled that inevitability like it was a live wire, necessary but dangerous. Instead, they existed in the tension, the almost, the not yet. It was torture. It was perfect. Then Thursday afternoon, Aurelia's phone rang while they were reviewing contracts in Luca's office. She glanced at the screen, frowned. "I need to take this," she said. Luca nodded. She stepped out into the hallway. Through the glass walls, he watched her expression change, watched color drain from her face, watched her hand come up to her mouth. Something was wrong. Luca stood up and walked into the hallway. "What happened?" he asked when she hung up. Aurelia looked at him with devastated eyes. "That was my cousin Emma. Is she okay?" "She's fine, but..." Aurelia's voice cracked. "Someone came to her apartment today. 2 men. They told her to deliver a message to me." Luca's blood went cold. "What message?" "They said I should be careful who I spend time with, that associating with dangerous people can have consequences." Rage detonated in Luca's chest. "Did they touch her?" "No, they just scared her." "Did she describe them?" "She said one of them had a scar across his eyebrow. The other had a Brooklyn accent." Tony Romano's men. Luca pulled out his phone and called Marco immediately. "Get everyone together," he said the second Marco picked up. "Conference room, now." He hung up and turned to Aurelia. "Go home," he told her. "Luca, go home and lock your door. I'm sending 2 of my men to watch your building. Don't leave until I call you." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done 2 weeks ago." Fear flashed across her face. "Please don't do anything reckless." "This isn't reckless. This is necessary." "Luca," he cupped her face in his hands. "I told you I would keep you safe. I meant it. But that means dealing with threats before they become problems. I don't want you to get hurt." "I won't. I promise." He kissed her quickly, then released her and headed for the conference room. Marco was already waiting with 6 of Luca's most trusted men. They stood when he entered. "Tony Romano sent men to threaten Aurelia's cousin," Luca said without preamble. "I want him brought to me. Tonight. Quietly. No mess." "You sure that's smart, boss?" one of the men asked. "His uncle will retaliate." "His uncle made a deal with me. If Tony broke that deal, Romano will understand what happens next." "And if he doesn't?" Luca looked at his men. "Then we're going to war." The room went silent. "I'm not asking permission," Luca continued. "I'm giving orders. Find Tony Romano. Bring him to the warehouse. If he resists, make him comply. But I want him alive." Marco nodded. "Consider it done." The men filed out. Marco stayed behind. "This is about her, isn't it?" the underboss said quietly. "This is about respect," Luca corrected. "Tony made this personal when he went after someone under my protection." "She's not just someone under your protection. She's everything," Luca interrupted. His voice came out raw, final. "And I will destroy anyone who threatens her, including Vincent Romano, if necessary." Marco stared at him. "You really love her?" "Yes." "Enough to start a war?" "Enough to end one." They found Tony Romano at a nightclub in Williamsburg, drunk, celebrating with friends. When Marco's men grabbed him in the parking lot, he fought back hard enough that they had to break his nose to make him comply. They brought him to the same warehouse where the meeting had happened 2 weeks before. Luca was waiting. Tony sat in a metal chair in the center of the empty space, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood streaming from his broken nose. He glared at Luca with hatred and fear mixing in his eyes. You're making a mistake, Tony growled. No, Luca said calmly. You made the mistake. I'm correcting it. My uncle will kill you for this. Your uncle made a deal with me. You broke it. He'll understand. I didn't break anything. Luca walked slowly around the chair. Two of your men went to an apartment today, threatened a young woman named Emma Hayes, told her to warn her cousin about associating with dangerous people. Tony's expression shifted, calculating. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Luca grabbed Tony by the hair and yanked his head back. I said don't lie to me. Pain flashed across Tony's face, but he kept glaring. What are you going to do? Kill me? My uncle will burn your empire to the ground. I'm not going to kill you, Luca said quietly. I'm going to make you wish I had. He released Tony's hair and stepped back, nodded to Marco. Marco pulled out a knife. Tony's eyes went wide. Wait, wait. I gave you a chance to back down, Luca said. You chose escalation, so let me be very clear about how this ends. You're going to call off your men. You're going to stay away from Aurelia, her family, and anyone else connected to me. And you're going to apologize to your uncle for putting his organization at risk over your ego. And if I don't, then I'll cut off your trigger finger, then your kneecaps, then anything else you might need to function as a man, and I'll do it slowly enough that you'll beg me to kill you long before I'm finished. Marco pressed the knife against Tony's right hand. The young Romano finally broke. Okay, I'll call them off. Say it again. I'll call them off. I'll leave her alone. Just don't. Luca gestured. Marco stepped back and put the knife away. You had potential, Luca said to Tony. You could have been someone important, but you let pride make you stupid. Remember that lesson. He turned to Marco. Take him home. Make sure his uncle gets the full story. You got it, boss. They cut Tony loose and dragged him out of the warehouse, still bleeding and shaking. Luca stood alone in the empty space, hands clenched into fists, adrenaline still burning through his veins. His phone rang. Aurelia. He answered. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm at my apartment with your men outside. What happened? It's handled. Tony Romano won't be a problem anymore. Silence. Then quietly, what did you do to him? What I had to. Luca, he threatened your family, Aurelia. I wasn't going to let that slide. Did you hurt him? Luca closed his eyes. No, but I scared him enough that he won't try again. More silence. He could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Are you angry? He asked. I don't know what I am, she said honestly. Part of me is relieved. Part of me is terrified of what you're capable of. I told you who I was. I know, and I chose you anyway. She exhaled. I need to process this. Take all the time you need. Can I see you tomorrow? Of course. Okay. Good night, Luca. Good night, Aurelia. She hung up. Luca stood in the warehouse staring at his phone. He'd protected her, done what needed to be done. But he could hear the fear in her voice, the fear of him. And he realized that no matter how much she tried to accept his world, there would always be moments like this, moments where she remembered exactly how dangerous he was. The question was whether she could live with that long enough for them to survive. The next day, Aurelia came to his office at noon. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept. We need to talk, she said. Luca's stomach dropped. Okay. She closed the door and sat down across from his desk, her hands folded in her lap. Professional posture, defensive. I've been thinking about what happened yesterday, she began. Aurelia, let me finish. She looked at him steadily. You protected my family. You dealt with a threat. I understand that. I even appreciate it. But I need to know this isn't going to be our life. Constant threats, constant violence. Me wondering every day if you're going to come home or if someone's finally going to kill you. Luca stood up and walked around the desk, sat on the edge so they were closer. I can't promise you it won't be dangerous, he said honestly. This is my world. This is what I do. But I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe. What about keeping yourself safe? What? Tears welled in her eyes. What if something happens to you, Luca? What if Tony's uncle retaliates? What if one of these threats you're constantly managing actually succeeds? That won't happen. You can't guarantee that. She was right. He couldn't. I've survived this long, Luca said quietly. I'm careful. I'm smart. I have the best people around me. That's not good enough. Then what do you want from me? Aurelia stood up, walked to the windows, stared out at the city for a long moment. I want a future, she said finally. Not just stolen moments between crises. Not just wondering when the next threat is coming. I want to know that we're building towards something real. Luca moved behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, pulled her back against his chest. We are building something real, he said against her hair. Are we? Or are we just pretending until reality catches up? What if I started pulling back? The words came out before he'd fully thought them through. What if I started transitioning out of the dangerous parts of the business? Aurelia turned in his arms, looked up at him with shock. What are you talking about? Legitimate businesses, real estate, investments, things that don't require violence. Luca, that's your empire. You're more important. She stared at him. You can't mean that. I do. If it means having a future with you, a real future, I'll walk away from all of it. Aurelia's eyes filled with tears. You do that? For me? For us. She pulled him down and kissed him, hard, desperate, like she was trying to convince herself this was real. When they broke apart, she was crying. I love you, she whispered. The words hit Luca like lightning. He'd been waiting to hear them, terrified she'd never say them, and now that she had, everything else fell away. I love you too, he said. They held each other in his office as afternoon light streamed through the windows. Two people who had no business falling in love, clinging to each other like the only solid thing in a world built on sand. Outside the office, through the glass walls, employees walked past, pretending not to notice their boss holding his assistant like she was the only thing keeping him alive. And for the first time in his life, Luca Moretti had something more valuable than power. He had hope. 3 months. That's how long it took for Luca Moretti to believe he could have both, the empire and the woman. 3 months of mornings waking up with Aurelia's head on his chest. 3 months of quiet dinners where they talked about futures instead of survival. 3 months of slowly, methodically transitioning his operations from violence to legitimacy. He'd started selling off the dangerous pieces, the gambling rings, the protection rackets, the enforcement contracts that required broken bones and shallow graves. Marco handled the transitions quietly, negotiating buyouts with families who'd been waiting years for opportunities like this. The legitimate businesses remained. Real estate, import-export, investment portfolios that generated millions without a single drop of blood. Luca told himself he was building something sustainable, something Aurelia could stand beside without flinching, something that wouldn't get her killed. He should have known peace was always temporary in his world. The call came on a Tuesday morning in early September. Luca sat in his office reviewing quarterly reports while Aurelia worked at the desk across from his. She'd moved in there permanently 2 weeks ago, claiming his office had better light. Really, they both just wanted proximity, needed it like oxygen. His phone buzzed. Marco's name lit up the screen. Luca answered. What is it? We have a problem. Marco's voice was tight, controlled, the tone he used when things were very, very bad. I need you at the warehouse, now. What kind of problem? The kind we discuss in person. The line went dead. Luca stood immediately. Aurelia looked up from her laptop. What's wrong? She asked. I don't know yet. I need to go meet Marco. Fear flickered across her face. She'd gotten better at hiding it over the past months, but it still surfaced whenever the old world bled into their new one. Should I be worried? She asked. No, probably just paperwork issues with one of the transitions. He was lying. Marco's tone had been wrong, but Luca couldn't burden her with fear over something he didn't understand yet. He kissed her forehead. I'll be back in an hour. Be careful. Always. 20 minutes later, Luca walked into the Red Hook warehouse where he'd threatened Tony Romano 3 months ago. The space was empty except for Marco standing near the metal table in the center. The underboss's expression was granite. What's going on? Luca asked. Marco pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, handed it to Luca. This arrived at my apartment this morning. Envelope slipped under the door. No note, just photos. Luca looked at the screen. His blood turned to ice. Photos. Dozens of them. Aurelia leaving her apartment. Aurelia getting coffee, Aurelia walking into Moretti Global, Aurelia at restaurants with Luca. Each image time-stamped, each one taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. Someone had been following her for weeks. There's more, Marco said quietly. He swiped to the next image. Emma, Aurelia's cousin, photographed outside her apartment, at her job, walking through Central Park. Then photos of Marco himself, his wife, his 2 daughters. They're showing us they can reach anyone, Marco said. Anyone we care about. Luca's hands clenched around the phone hard enough that the case cracked. Who sent this? No idea, but there was one more thing in the envelope. Marco pulled out a small white card, held it so Luca could read the handwritten message. You took something that belonged to us. We're taking something that belongs to you. 48 hours. Luca read it 3 times. His mind raced through possibilities. Enemies, rivals, families he'd pushed out during the transition, anyone with a grudge and the resources to mount surveillance like this. Romano? Luca asked. He's been quiet since the Tony situation. This doesn't feel like his style. Then who? I don't know, boss, but whoever it is, they're serious, professional. This level of surveillance costs money and manpower. Luca pulled out his own phone, called Aurelia immediately. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, that was fast. Where are you right now? Luca interrupted. At the office. Why? Stay there. Don't leave the building. I'm sending men to you. Luca, what's happening? Just stay there. I'll explain when I get back. He hung up before she could ask more questions. Turned to Marco. I want security on Aurelia, Emma, your family, and anyone else in these photos. 24-hour rotation. Armed. No one gets close to them. Already arranged. Teams are moving into position now. Good. Next, I want to know who sent this. Pull every contact we have. Shake down every informant. Someone knows something. Marco nodded. What about Aurelia? Are you going to tell her? Luca stared at the photos on the phone screen, at the woman he loved captured in frame after frame like prey being stalked. Yes, he said quietly. She deserves to know what she's stepped into. Aurelia took the news better than Luca expected. He showed her the photos in his office with the door closed and the blinds drawn, watched her face drain of color as she swiped through image after image of herself living her life while being hunted. How long has this been happening? She asked. Her voice was steady, too steady. Based on the timestamps, at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks! She set the phone down on his desk like it burned her fingers. Someone's been watching me for 6 weeks and I didn't notice. They're professionals. You wouldn't have. Who are they? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Aurelia stood up and walked to the windows, wrapped her arms around herself. Luca could see her reflection in the glass, pale, shaken, trying to hold herself together. This is because of me, she said. What? The message. You took something that belonged to us. They're talking about me, about us. Someone's upset that you're with me. That's not... Don't lie to me, Luca. She turned to face him. You've been transitioning out of the violent parts of your business for 3 months. You've been selling territory, cutting ties, stepping back from the things that made you untouchable. And now someone thinks you're weak because of it. Because of me. Luca crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed her shoulders gently. You are not weakness, he said fiercely. You're the only real thing I've ever had. Anyone who thinks loving you makes me weak is going to learn exactly how wrong they are. Tears welled in her eyes. What if they hurt Emma? What if trying to protect me gets other people killed? That won't happen. You can't promise that. I can and I am. I have men on everyone in those photos. No one is getting hurt. Aurelia searched his face, looking for the certainty she needed, the promise that this nightmare had an ending. What do we do? She asked. We wait. Whoever sent this wants a response. They'll make contact again. And then? Then I'll make sure they regret ever looking at you. The response came 18 hours later. Luca was in a meeting with his legal team when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then something made him answer. Moretti. A mechanical voice, digitally distorted, gender indeterminate. Hello, Luca. Did you enjoy the photos? Every muscle in Luca's body went rigid. He stood up, gestured for everyone to leave the conference room. They filed out quickly. "Who is this?" Luca asked. "Someone you wronged. Someone who's been very patient waiting for the right moment." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything." The distorted voice carried an edge of satisfaction. "You've spent 3 months playing house with your little assistant, building a fantasy where you can have love and power, but you can't have both, Luca. You never could. If you touch her, you'll what? Kill me? You don't even know who I am." Luca forced himself to breathe, to think. Rage wouldn't help. He needed information. "Tell me what you want," he said carefully. "I want you to suffer, the way you made others suffer, the way you destroyed lives without blinking." "I've made a lot of enemies. You'll have to be more specific." The mechanical laugh sent ice down Luca's spine. "You really don't remember, do you? 3 years ago, a warehouse in Queens. You and your men walked in during a negotiation, killed everyone except one person. Do you remember now?" Luca's mind raced backward. 3 years ago, Queens, a negotiation that went bad. He remembered blood on concrete, bodies that needed to disappear, but the details blurred together with dozens of other nights just like it. "I remember," Luca lied. "Liar. You don't remember because they were nobodies to you, expendable, but one of them was my brother." The pieces clicked into place. "I left one person alive," Luca said slowly, "as a message." "Yes, me. You let me live so I could tell your rivals what happens when they try to undercut your territory. You thought I'd be grateful, terrified. Instead, I spent 3 years planning how to destroy you." "Then why wait? Why not come after me directly?" "Because killing you would be too easy, too fast. I want you to feel what I felt, helpless, watching someone you love slip away and knowing there's nothing you can do to stop it." Luca's blood ran cold. "What did you do?" "Check your email." The line went dead. Luca pulled up his email on his phone. The latest message had no subject line, just a video attachment. He clicked it. The screen showed a dark room, concrete walls, a single chair in the center. And sitting in that chair, zip-tied and gagged, was Emma. Aurelia's cousin stared at the camera with wide, terrified eyes. Tears streamed down her face. Behind her stood a figure in a black mask. The video was time-stamped 2 hours ago. Luca's vision tunneled. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. They had her. While he'd been sitting in meetings reviewing contracts, someone had grabbed Emma off the street and taken her somewhere his men couldn't reach. He called Marco immediately. "Boss, they have Emma. Send me everything you have on the protective detail we put on her." "What?" "That's impossible. We had 2 men. I don't care what we had. They took her anyway. I need to know how." Marco was silent for exactly 3 seconds. "I'll call you back in 5 minutes." Luca hung up, stared at the frozen image of Emma's terrified face on his phone screen. This was his fault. He'd thought he was being careful, thought he could protect everyone. But he'd underestimated whoever was hunting him, underestimated their patience, their resources, their hatred. His office door burst open. Aurelia stood there, phone in hand, face white as bone. "Someone sent me a video," she whispered. Luca's heart stopped. "Aurelia, they have Emma." Her voice cracked. "They have my cousin, and they sent me a video of her tied to a chair, and—" She couldn't finish, just stood there, shaking. Luca crossed the room and pulled her against his chest. She collapsed into him, sobbing. "I'm going to get her back," Luca said against her hair. "I promise you, I'm going to get her back." "How? We don't even know who they are." "I'll find them." "What if we can't? What if they—" "Don't." Luca pulled back and cupped her face in his hands. "Don't go there. We're going to find her, and she's going to be fine." Aurelia stared at him with devastated eyes. "This is my fault. If we hadn't, this is not your fault. This is on me, and I'm going to fix it." His phone rang. "Marco." Luca answered on speaker. "Tell me." "The protective detail we put on Emma Hayes was compromised," Marco said. His voice was tight with barely contained rage. "Both men were found unconscious in a parking garage 3 blocks from her apartment. Someone drugged them. Professional work." "How long ago?" "Based on when they were supposed to check in, approximately 3 hours." 3 hours. Emma had been in enemy hands for 3 hours, and they were just finding out. What else? Luca demanded. I'm pulling traffic camera footage now, trying to track which direction they went. But boss, whoever did this knew exactly how we'd respond. They planned around our security, which means someone on the inside gave them information. Silence on the line. You think we have a leak? Marco asked carefully. I think it's the only explanation that makes sense. Aurelia pulled away from Luca, wrapped her arms around herself. What does that mean? It means someone I trust betrayed me, Luca said. The words tasted like poison. Someone close enough to know our security protocols. His phone buzzed. Another email. Another video. This one showed Emma in the same chair, but now the masked figure stood beside her holding a knife. The mechanical voice spoke over the footage. You have 36 hours, Luca. 36 hours to decide what matters more, your empire or her life. Choose the empire and Emma dies. Choose Emma and you give me everything, all your territory, all your businesses, everything you've built. Sign it over and walk away. Then maybe I'll let her go. The video cut to black. Aurelia made a sound like she'd been punched. No. Aurelia. They're going to kill her. She grabbed Luca's shirt. You have to give them whatever they want. I don't care about the empire. I don't care about any of it. Just give them what they want and get Emma back. Luca pulled her hands away gently, held them between his. If I give them everything, I have no leverage, no power to protect you or Emma or anyone else. They could take what I give them and kill her anyway. But if you don't, I'm going to find her before the deadline. I'm going to find whoever took her, and I'm going to make them regret ever touching her. How? By doing what I do best. He looked at Marco through the phone screen. Call everyone. I want every contact we have shaken down, every informant questioned, every enemy we've ever made put under surveillance. Someone knows who's behind this, and I want that name in the next 12 hours. On it. Marco hung up. Luca turned back to Aurelia. She looked broken, shattered, like everything she'd been holding together for the past 3 months had finally collapsed. I can't lose her, Aurelia whispered. She's all the family I have left. You won't lose her. You can't promise that. Yes, I can, because I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to let someone destroy what we've built out of revenge for something I did years ago. Aurelia stared at him. Is that what this is? Revenge? Yes. For what? Luca hesitated, then decided she deserved the truth. 3 years ago, I killed some people during a territory dispute. I left one person alive to send a message. Apparently, that person spent the last 3 years planning this. The color drained from Aurelia's face. You killed their family. I killed their brother. And now they want to kill mine. Her voice was hollow, empty. This is who you are. This is what your world does. It takes and takes and takes until there's nothing left. Aurelia, I need to go. Go where? I don't know. Anywhere. I can't be here right now. She turned toward the door. Luca grabbed her arm. Let me go, Luca. Not like this. What do you want me to say? She spun to face him. Tears streamed down her face. That it's okay? That I understand? My cousin is being held hostage because I fell in love with you, because you killed someone 3 years ago and I'm paying the price for it now. I'm going to fix this. You can't fix this. You can fix a business deal. You can fix a territory dispute. But you can't fix the fact that Emma is somewhere terrified and alone because of choices you made before I ever met you. The words hit like physical blows. I know you're scared, Luca said quietly. I know you're angry. But I need you to trust me, one more time. Trust that I can bring her home. Aurelia looked at him with eyes full of pain and doubt. I don't know if I can. She pulled her arm free and walked out of his office. Luca stood there alone, watching her disappear down the hallway. Every instinct screamed at him to follow, to pull her back, to make her understand. But she was right. This was his fault, and if he couldn't fix it, he'd lose everything that mattered. The next 24 hours were a nightmare of dead ends and false leads. Luca's men questioned every informant in 5 boroughs, pulled surveillance footage from 100 traffic cameras, traced Emma's last known movements down to the minute. Nothing. Whoever had taken her knew how to disappear. At hour 18, one of Marco's contacts came through with a name. A mercenary who'd been seen meeting with several of Luca's old rivals 3 weeks ago, a specialist in kidnapping and intimidation. They found the mercenary in a motel in Newark, brought him to the warehouse. Luca spent an hour making him talk. By the time the mercenary gave up the location, Luca's hands were covered in blood. Warehouse in the Bronx, the mercenary gasped through broken teeth. Off Hunts Point. That's all I know, I swear. Who hired you? Luca demanded. I don't know. Money was left in a drop location. Instructions were digital. I never met anyone face to face. You're lying. I'm not lying, please. Luca looked at Marco. The underboss's expression was grim. He's telling the truth, boss. Whoever set this up covered their tracks. Luca released the mercenary, let him collapse to the floor, wiped blood off his hands with a towel. Send a team to the Bronx location, Luca said. Full tactical. I'm going with them. Boss, if this is a trap, I don't care. If there's even a chance Emma's there, I'm taking it. They mobilized in 15 minutes. 6 vehicles, 18 men, enough firepower to start a small war. Luca called Aurelia from the car. She answered immediately. Did you find her? Maybe. We got a location. I'm going there now. I'm coming with you. No. Luca, it's too dangerous. If this goes wrong, I want to be there. Emma's my family. I'm coming. The steel in her voice left no room for argument. Fine, Luca said, but you stay in the car, no matter what happens. Okay. He picked her up outside Moretti Global 20 minutes later. She climbed into the back seat beside him, wearing dark clothes and a grim expression. Didn't say anything, just reached for his hand and held on tight. They drove through the Bronx in silence as the sun set over the city. The convoy pulled up outside a warehouse district near Hunts Point. Abandoned buildings stretched in every direction, chain-link fences topped with razor wire, broken windows like dead eyes. The Target warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end street, dark, quiet, no visible movement. Marco came to Luca's car window. Thermal imaging shows 3 people inside, he reported. One appears to be restrained, the other 2 are mobile. That's her, Aurelia breathed. That has to be her. Could be a trap, Marco warned. I know, Luca said, which is why I'm going in alone. Boss? Oh, I'm not risking everyone on a maybe. I go in. If it's clear, I signal. If it's a trap, you get Aurelia out of here. Luca, no! Aurelia grabbed his arm. He turned to her, cupped her face in his hands. I'm going to bring your cousin back. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm keeping this one. He kissed her hard, then climbed out of the car before she could stop him. Marco handed him a pistol. Comms are active. We hear anything wrong, we're coming in. Luca nodded, checked the weapon, walked toward the warehouse. The front entrance was chained shut. Luca went around to the side, found a broken window low enough to climb through, slipped inside. Darkness. Silence. The smell of rust and old motor oil. Luca moved through the space carefully, gun raised, eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through broken skylights. He found her in the back corner. Emma sat in a metal chair exactly like the video showed, zip-tied, gagged. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Luca pressed a finger to his lips, crossed to her quickly, pulled the gag free. Where are they? He whispered. I don't know, Emma gasped. They left an hour ago, said they'd be back, said you'd come for me, and it's okay. I'm getting you out. He pulled out a knife and cut the zip ties. Emma's hands were numb. She couldn't stand on her own. Luca scooped her up and turned toward the exit. The lights slammed on, blinding, brutal. Luca froze. Shapes materialized around the perimeter of the warehouse. 12 men, all armed, all pointing weapons directly at him. And in the center of them stood a figure Luca recognized immediately. Vincent Romano. The old Brooklyn boss smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Hello, Luca, Romano said. Glad you could join us. Luca's mind raced. Vinny, what the hell is this? This is checkmate. Romano walked closer, hands in his pockets, calm. You've been so focused on finding some mysterious enemy, some vengeful stranger. You never considered it might be someone you already knew. The brother. The warehouse 3 years ago. That was bullshit? Complete fiction. There was no brother, no revenge plot, just me. waiting for the perfect moment. Why? Because you got soft, Luca. 3 months ago, you started dismantling everything that made you dangerous, selling territory, cutting ties, all because of her. Romano gestured toward the building entrance where Aurelia had just appeared, gun drawn, face white with terror. Marco and the others rushed in behind her. Romano's men raised their weapons. "Stop!" Romano shouted. "Everyone stops, or Luca and the girl both die right now." Marco froze. His men froze. Aurelia stood in the doorway, shaking. Luca tightened his grip on Emma. "Let her go, Vinny. This is between us." "No, this is about what you took from me." Romano's voice went cold. "You pushed me out of Manhattan. You undermined my authority. You made me look weak in front of every family in this city. And then you started transitioning to legitimate businesses, like you could just walk away from everything you built on blood. So you took Emma to get leverage. I took Emma to prove a point. You can't have both, Luca. You can't have the empire and the girl. So I'm giving you a choice." Romano pulled out a gun, pointed it at Aurelia. "You can save her. Walk out of here with the woman you love. Leave your empire behind. Sign over everything to me and disappear. Or—" He shifted the gun toward Emma. "You can save the cousin, prove you're still ruthless enough to make hard choices. But either way, you don't get to keep both." Luca's blood turned to ice. "You're insane," he said. "I'm practical. This is the world you built, Luca. A world where love is weakness, where caring about someone makes you vulnerable. So choose. Who dies?" Aurelia stepped forward. "Shoot me." "Aurelia, no," Luca started. "Shoot me," she repeated. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice was steady. "Emma didn't ask for any of this. She's innocent. So shoot me and let everyone else go." Romano smiled. "Brave, stupid, but brave." "Don't do this, Vinny," Luca said. His voice shook. "You want the empire? Fine, take it. Take all of it. Just let them go." "Where's the fun in that?" Romano cocked the gun. Luca moved without thinking, dropped Emma, raised his own weapon, fired. The bullet hit Romano in the shoulder. The old boss stumbled backward. Chaos erupted. Romano's men opened fire. Marco's team returned shots. The warehouse became a war zone in seconds. Luca grabbed Emma and dove behind a concrete pillar. Bullets sparked off metal and concrete around them. Across the space, Aurelia had dropped to the floor. Marco covered her, firing systematically at Romano's men. Luca looked for Romano, found him crawling toward the exit, wounded but moving. "Stay here," Luca told Emma. He ran toward Romano, tackled the old boss before he could escape. They hit the ground hard. Romano's gun skittered away. Luca straddled him, pressed his gun against Romano's forehead. "Give me one reason," Luca snarled. Romano laughed. Blood bubbled between his teeth. "Because killing me makes you exactly what she's afraid you are, a monster, and she'll never look at you the same way again." Luca's finger tightened on the trigger. One squeeze, that's all it would take, end the threat, protect his future, become the thing Aurelia feared most. "Luca!" Aurelia's voice cut through the gunfire. He looked up. She stood 20 feet away, face pale, eyes locked on him, watching him decide who he was. The gunfire had stopped. Romano's men were down or surrendering. Marco's team had won, but the only fight that mattered was the one happening inside Luca's chest. He looked down at Romano, at the man who'd tried to destroy everything, who'd hurt innocent people to prove a point. Then he pulled the gun away, stood up. "Take him," Luca told Marco. "Let the authorities handle it. Let him rot in a cell." Marco grabbed Romano and zip-tied his hands. Luca crossed to Aurelia. She was shaking, covered in dust and terror. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Emma, she's fine. She's safe." Aurelia looked past him to where Emma sat against the pillar. Her cousin was crying, but alive. Whole. Then Aurelia looked back at Luca. "You almost killed him," she said quietly. "I know." "Why didn't you?" "Because you were watching, and I needed you to know I could make a different choice." Tears spilled down her face. "I don't know if that's enough." The words hit harder than bullets. "Aurelia, I need time, Luca. I need to think about all of this, about whether I can really live in your world. Please. I almost died tonight. Emma almost died. How many more people am I going to put in danger just by loving you?" That's not fair. None of this is fair. She stepped back. But it's real. And I have to decide if I'm strong enough to survive it. She turned and walked to Emma, helped her cousin Stan. Together they walked out of the warehouse into the night. Luca stood there surrounded by the wreckage of the fight. Blood on the concrete, bodies being loaded into vehicles, victory that tasted like ash. Marco appeared beside him. Boss, you good? No, Luca said quietly. I'm really not. He'd won the battle, but watching Aurelia walk away, he realized he might have just lost the war. The next 48 hours passed in silence. Aurelia didn't return to work, didn't answer calls, sent a single text saying she and Emma needed time alone. Luca let her have it, gave her the space she asked for even though every hour felt like dying. Romano was arrested. The district attorney built a case around kidnapping, attempted murder, and racketeering. The old boss would spend the rest of his life in prison. Luca's empire remained intact, battered, bruised, but standing. He'd won. So why did it feel like he'd lost everything? On the third morning, Luca sat in his empty office, staring at the city below. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Moretti, someone's here to see you. His heart lurched. Send them in. The door opened. Aurelia walked in. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back severely, professional armor fully in place. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. She closed the door, walked to the center of the office, but didn't sit. Just stood there looking at him like she was memorizing his face. I've been thinking, she started, about everything that happened, about who you are, about whether I can really do this. Luca's chest tightened. And? I love you, she said. Despite everything, despite the fear and the danger and the absolute insanity of it, I love you more than I've ever loved anything. But, tears filled her eyes, but I can't be the reason people get hurt. I can't be the weakness that your enemies use against you. Emma almost died because of me, because loving me made you vulnerable. That wasn't your fault. It doesn't matter whose fault it was. It happened, and it'll happen again. She wrapped her arms around herself. So I'm asking you to make a choice, a real one. Choose the Empire or choose me. But you can't have both. Romano was right about that. Luca stood slowly, walked around the desk, stopped close enough to see the pain in her eyes. I already made my choice, he said. 3 months ago when I started transitioning out of the dangerous parts of the business. I chose you. That's not enough. You saw what happened. You can't just halfway step away. Your enemies will always see you as a target, will always try to hurt you through the people you love. Then what do you want me to do? Walk away completely. Leave it all behind. We take Emma somewhere safe, somewhere far from this city. Start over with just the legitimate businesses, no ties to the old world, no empire, just us. The request hung in the air between them. Everything he'd built, everything he'd fought for, every drop of blood and sacrifice and ruthless decision that had made him a king, gone, for her. Luca looked at Aurelia, at the woman who'd somehow become more important than power, more valuable than an empire. And he realized the answer had never been a question at all. Okay, he said. She blinked. What? Okay, we'll do it. I'll walk away from all of it, sign everything over to Marco, let him run the organization, we'll take the legitimate holdings and disappear. Luca, you can't, you don't mean, I mean every word. He cupped her face in his hands. You're right, I can't have both. And if I have to choose, I choose you, every time, without hesitation. But your empire doesn't matter. None of it matters if I lose you. Aurelia stared at him, searching for the lie, the catch, the proof that he was just saying what she needed to hear. But there was no lie, just the truth of a man who'd finally found something worth more than power. What if you regret it? She whispered. I won't. What if you resent me? Impossible. What if... He kissed her, soft, certain, pouring every ounce of conviction into the gentle pressure of his mouth against hers. When they pulled apart, Aurelia was crying. Are you sure? She asked. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She pulled him close, buried her face against his chest. Then let's do it. Let's just leave. Start over somewhere new. Build something real that isn't covered in blood. Where do you want to go? Anywhere, as long as you're there. Luca held her in his empty office as morning light streamed through the windows. The empire he'd built stretched out below them, miles of territory and power and fear. And he was walking away from all of it, for love, for her. For the first time in his life, Luca Moretti chose something more dangerous than violence. He chose hope. Luca had 48 hours to dismantle an empire. That's what Marco told him when they sat down in the conference room the day after Luca made his decision. The underboss spread documents across the table, transfer agreements, business contracts, territory deeds, bank accounts worth hundreds of millions. This is everything, Marco said. His voice was carefully neutral. Sign it over to me and you walk away clean. Luca stared at the papers. Decades of work, blood, sacrifice, power that men killed for, gone with a signature. What happens to the organization after I leave? Luca asked. I run it. Keep the legitimate businesses growing. Phase out the rest over time. Exactly what you were doing, just faster. And the families, the rivals, they'll test me. But I've been your right hand for 8 years. They know I'm not weak. Marco paused. The real question is whether you can live with walking away. Luca looked up. I already told Aurelia I would. I know, but telling her and actually doing it are different things. Once you sign these papers, you're done. No coming back. No emergency calls when things go wrong. You'll be a civilian. The word felt foreign. Wrong. Luca had never been a civilian. Even before he officially took over the organization, he'd been groomed for this life. Violence was his language. Power was his oxygen. But Aurelia was his future. I can live with it, Luca said. He picked up a pen and started signing. Each signature felt like cutting away a piece of himself. The real estate holdings, the import businesses, the investment portfolios, the offshore accounts, everything he'd built, everything he'd killed for. Gone. Marco witnessed each signature, collected the documents, organized them into folders. There's one more thing, the underboss said quietly. What? Protection. You're walking away, but your enemies don't know that yet. Until word spreads that you're out, you're still a target. And Aurelia, he hesitated. She'll always be a target. Everyone knows she's the woman who made Luca Moretti go soft. I'm aware. So what's the plan? Where are you going? Somewhere far from here. New identities. Clean break. You're really doing this. It wasn't a question, just Marco processing the reality of what was happening. I'm really doing this, Luca confirmed. Marco nodded slowly, then stood and extended his hand. It's been an honor, boss. Luca shook it. Take care of them, the people who work for us, the families who depend on the organization. Don't let it become what it was before I cleaned it up. I won't. You have my word. They stood there for a moment, two men who'd survived wars together, built an empire together. And now we're saying goodbye. For what it's worth, Marco said, I think you're making the right choice. Love's rare in this world, especially for people like us. Thanks, Marco. The underboss left. Luca sat alone in the empty conference room staring at the blank spaces where his signatures had been. Felt lighter somehow, freer, terrified. His phone buzzed. Aurelia. Aurelia. How did it go? Luca. It's done. Everything signed over. Aurelia. Are you okay? Luca. Yeah, come to my place tonight. We need to plan the next steps. Aurelia. I'll be there at 8. Luca pocketed his phone, walked out of Moretti Global for what might be the last time. Employees nodded as he passed. Didn't know yet that their king had just abdicated. Outside, the city stretched before him. Manhattan. The empire he was leaving behind. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One step forward into the unknown, one step toward a life he'd never imagined possible. He took it. That evening, Luca stood in his penthouse overlooking the city. The space felt different now, less like a fortress, more like a museum of a life he was leaving behind. Aurelia arrived at 8 exactly. She wore jeans and a sweater instead of her usual professional armor. Hair down, face free of makeup. She looked younger, more vulnerable, real. Hey, she said softly. Hey. She walked to the windows, stood beside him, looking out at the glowing skyline. I keep thinking this is a dream, she admitted, that I'm going to wake up and you'll still be the untouchable Mafia king who terrifies everyone. I never terrified you. You did it first, before I figured out that underneath all that control was someone desperately lonely. Luca turned to look at her. Is that what you saw? Always, from the very beginning. She met his eyes. So where do we go? What's the plan? West Coast? California, maybe? Somewhere warm? Somewhere we can disappear. What about Emma? She comes with us if she wants. New identity. Fresh start. I'll make sure she's taken care of. Aurelia nodded. I talked to her today. She's terrified. What happened in that warehouse? She can't sleep. Keeps having nightmares. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. It is. Romano took her because of me. Romano took her because he was a monster. Aurelia turned to face him fully. You saved her. You could have killed him and you didn't. That matters. Does it? To me it does. She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around his waist. Luca held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feeling of her against him. When do we leave? She asked. 72 hours. I need to close a few final accounts. Make sure Marco has everything he needs. Then we disappear. And after that? After that, we build something new, something real that isn't covered in blood. Aurelia pulled back enough to look up at him. I'm scared. So am I. What if we can't make it work? What if... He kissed her, slow, deep, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, Aurelia was breathing hard. We'll make it work, Luca said. Because we have to. Because I'm not losing you. Promise? I promise. She stood on her toes and kissed him again. This time it was different, hungrier, more desperate. Weeks of restraint and fear finally breaking apart. Luca pulled her closer, slid his hands under her sweater, felt her gasp against his mouth. Luca, tell me to stop. Don't you dare. They stumbled toward the bedroom. Clothes disappeared, hands explored. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss was a commitment. For the first time, they weren't afraid. For the first time, they let themselves fall completely. Oops. The next morning, Luca woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and Aurelia asleep beside him. Her head rested on his chest, one arm draped across his stomach. She looked peaceful, safe, his. He stayed still, not wanting to wake her, just watching her breathe, memorizing the moment. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Luca grabbed it carefully, Marco calling. He slipped out of bed, grabbed pants, walked to the living room before answering. What is it? We have a problem. Marco's voice was tight, urgent. Luca's entire body went rigid. What kind of problem? Tony Romano, Vinny's nephew. What about him? He's out. Posted bail this morning, and he's making noise about revenge. Loud noise. Luca's blood went cold. For what? His uncle's in prison because of his own choices. Tony doesn't see it that way. He blames you, says you destroyed his family. And boss, Marco paused. He knows you're leaving. Someone leaked it. Now Tony's telling everyone that the great Luca Moretti is running away like a coward. I don't care what he says. You should, because he's rallying support. Young guys who think you going soft is an opportunity. They're planning something. Planning what? I don't know yet, but my sources say it's happening soon, in the next 48 hours. 48 hours. The same window Luca had to get out of the city. Do they know where I'm going? Luca asked. No, but they know about Aurelia. They know she's the reason you're leaving. And boss, they're not just coming after you. Luca's chest tightened. Say it. They're coming after her. Tony wants to hurt you the way you hurt his family, which means taking away the thing you love most. Rage detonated in Luca's chest, white hot, blinding. Where is she now? He demanded. At your place. I've got men on the building. But if Tony's crew is serious, double the security, triple it, no one gets near her. Already done. But Luca, if they're planning a coordinated hit, then we hit them first. Boss, you signed over the organization. You're supposed to be walking away. I walk away when Aurelia's safe, not before. Silence on the line. What do you need? Marco asked quietly. Everything. Full tactical team, weapons. Surveillance on Tony and everyone he's been meeting with. I want to know where he is, who he's with, and what he's planning. I'll have it in 2 hours. Make it 1. Luca hung up. Stood in his living room with his hands clenched into fists, breathing hard, fighting the urge to put his fist through the wall. He thought he could walk away clean, thought signing papers and leaving the city would be enough. But the violence followed him. It always did. Behind him, a soft voice. Luca? He turned. Aurelia stood in the bedroom doorway wearing one of his shirts, hair messy from sleep, eyes concerned. What's wrong? She asked. Luca crossed to her, pulled her against his chest, held her tight enough that she gasped. Luca, you're scaring me. Tony Romano is out on bail. He's planning something, coming after us. Aurelia went rigid. How? When? I don't know the details yet. Marco's getting information. But until we know what we're dealing with, you're staying here. Full security. You don't leave this building. What about Emma? I'm sending men to her right now. She'll be protected. Aurelia pulled back, looked up at him with fear and frustration mixing in her eyes. This is never going to end, is it? Even if we leave, even if you walk away, there's always going to be someone looking for revenge. Not if I end this now. What does that mean? Luca's jaw tightened. It means I'm going to find Tony Romano before he finds us, and I'm going to make sure he never threatens you again. You're going to kill him. It wasn't a question. If I have to. Luca, don't. His voice came out hard, final. Don't ask me to let this go. Don't ask me to be reasonable. Someone is planning to hurt you, and I'm not going to wait around for it to happen. So you're going back. To the violence. To everything we were trying to leave behind. Just long enough to keep you safe. And what if you don't come back? The question hung between them. I will, Luca said. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. Because I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever. Aurelia stared at him. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. This is who you are, she said quietly. This is what you do. You see a threat and you destroy it. Yes. And you can't change that. No, I can't, but I can control who I protect and who I destroy. He cupped her face in his hands. I'm protecting you, whatever it takes. She closed her eyes, leaned into his touch. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. After this, it's over. We leave. We disappear. We build the life we talked about. Promise? I promise. She kissed him, desperate, clinging, like she was trying to memorize the taste of him in case it was the last time. When they broke apart, Luca rested his forehead against hers. Stay here, he said. Don't answer the door for anyone except Marco or me. Understand? Okay. Say it. I'll stay here. I won't answer the door. Good. He kissed her one more time, then released her and went to get dressed. An hour later, Luca sat in the back of an SUV with Marco and 4 heavily armed men. They'd set up a mobile command center in an abandoned parking garage 3 blocks from where Tony Romano was reportedly holed up. Marco's tablet showed surveillance feeds from cameras they'd positioned around the building, a rundown apartment complex in Queens. Low income. The kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't call the cops. He's on the 3rd floor, Marco reported. Apartment 3G. We've confirmed at least 6 people with him, all armed. How sure are we this is where he's planning the hit? Luca asked. 70%. My source inside Tony's crew says this is the staging ground. They're supposed to move out tonight. Then we move first. What's the approach? Marco pulled up building schematics on the tablet. Fire escape on the east side leads directly to the 3rd floor. We send a team up that way while another team takes the main stairs. Pin them between us. How many civilians in the building? Unknown, but it's the middle of the day. Most people are at work. Most isn't good enough. I don't want collateral damage. Boss, if we wait until tonight when Tony moves, we lose the element of surprise. This is our best shot. Luca stared at the building through tinted windows, weighed the options. Wait and risk Tony hitting first, or strike now and risk innocent people getting caught in the crossfire. No good choices, only necessary ones. We go now, Luca decided. But non-lethal if possible. I want Tony alive. Why? Because I want him to know exactly why he lost. I want him to understand what happens when you threaten the people I love. Marco nodded, turned to the team. You heard the boss? Rubber bullets and tasers unless absolutely necessary. Primary target is Tony Romano. Bring him out alive. The men checked their weapons, strapped on vests, moved with practiced efficiency. Luca grabbed a pistol, checked the magazine. This wasn't how he'd planned to spend his last days in the city. But plans meant nothing when survival was on the line. They moved toward this building in two groups. Marco took 4 men up the fire escape. Luca took 2 men through the main entrance. The lobby smelled like mildew and cigarettes, flickering fluorescent lights, broken mailboxes, graffiti on the walls. They climbed the stairs quietly, reached the 3rd floor, moved down the hallway toward apartment 3G. Voices inside, laughter, the sound of glass bottles clinking. Luca positioned himself beside the door. His men flanked him on both sides. Through his earpiece, Marco's voice whispered, "In position. On your signal." Luca raised his fist, counted down silently with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. He kicked the door. It exploded inward. Luca rushed through with his weapon raised. The apartment erupted in chaos. 6 men scattered, grabbing for guns, diving for cover, shouting. "Down, everyone down!" Luca roared. One of Tony's men fired. The bullet tore through the doorframe inches from Luca's head. He returned fire. Rubber bullet caught the shooter in the chest. The man went down gasping. Marco's team crashed through the windows from the fire escape. Glass shattered. More shouting. More gunfire. Luca moved through the apartment systematically, neutralizing threats, taking down Tony's crew one by one. Then he saw him. Tony Romano crouched behind a couch, gun in hand, eyes wild with fear and rage. "It's over, Tony," Luca called. "Put the gun down." "Fuck you," Tony fired wildly. Bullets punched holes in the walls. Luca dove behind a table. "You destroyed my family," Tony screamed. "My uncle's in prison because of you. My life is over because of you." "Your uncle's in prison because he made bad choices," Luca shouted back. "Because he tried to hurt innocent people." "She's not innocent. That bitch made you weak, made you a coward." Rage surged through Luca's veins, hot, consuming. He stood and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. 2 hit Tony in the legs. The 3rd caught his shoulder. The young Romano collapsed screaming. Luca crossed the room, kicked Tony's gun away, stood over him while blood pooled on the dirty carpet. "You want to know why I'm leaving?" Luca asked quietly. "Why I'm walking away from the Empire?" Tony glared up at him through pain and hatred. "Because I found something worth more than power," Luca continued. "Something you'll never understand. And anyone who threatens that, anyone who even thinks about hurting her, I will destroy completely." He pressed his boot against Tony's wounded shoulder. The young man screamed. "Spread the word," Luca said. "Luca Moretti is done. But that doesn't make me weak. That makes me dangerous in a whole new way because now I have something to protect. And I'll burn this entire city down before I let anyone take it from me." He removed his boot, turned to Marco. "Call an ambulance. Then call the police. Tell them we caught the men who kidnapped Emma Hayes. Give them everything. Let them rot in prison with Vinny." Marco nodded. Luca walked out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the bright afternoon sunlight. His hands were shaking. Adrenaline burned through his system. But underneath the rage and violence, he felt something else. Relief. It was over. Tony was neutralized. The threat was gone. He could leave now, could take Aurelia and disappear and build the life they'd planned. His phone rang. Unknown number. Luca almost didn't answer. Then something made him pick up. Moretti. Static. Breathing. Then a voice that made his blood turn to ice. "Hello, Luca." It was mechanical, digitally distorted. The same voice from the call about Emma weeks ago. But that had been Romano. This couldn't be Romano. "Who is this?" Luca demanded. "Did you really think Vincent Romano was smart enough to plan that kidnapping alone? That he could run surveillance on you for weeks without help?" Luca's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? Romano was a useful idiot, a puppet, someone I could use to test you, to see if you'd really choose love over power." The voice laughed, cold, mechanical. "And you passed. You chose her. Signed away your empire, became exactly what I needed you to become." "Needed me to become?" Weak, vulnerable, exposed. Terror shot through Luca's chest. Where is she? By now? My people should be entering your penthouse. Your security is good, Luca, but mine is better. Luca started running, back toward his car. Phone pressed against his ear. If you touch her, you'll what? You're not a king anymore. You're just a man in love, and that makes you easy to destroy. What do you want? I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything, the way my sister felt when you killed her husband 3 years ago, the way she felt when she watched her children grow up without a father because of you. The pieces clicked into place. 3 years ago, a warehouse, a negotiation gone bad. Luca had killed a man who'd tried to undercut his territory, left his wife alive as a message. That wife had spent 3 years planning revenge. Let Aurelia go, Luca said. He was at his car, throwing open the door. This is between us. She has nothing to do with what happened. She has everything to do with it. She's the woman you love, the same way I loved my husband. And now you're going to watch her die the way I watched him die. Please, beg all you want. It won't change anything. You took my family. Now I'm taking yours. The line went dead. Luca screamed, slammed his fist against the steering wheel, then started the engine and tore out of the parking garage. Traffic blurred past. Red lights meant nothing. He drove like a man possessed. Phone pressed to his ear, calling Aurelia over and over. No answer, no answer, no answer. He called the security team he'd left at the penthouse. No answer. 20 minutes. That's how long it took to reach his building. 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. He abandoned the car in the middle of the street, ran into the lobby. The doorman was unconscious, slumped behind his desk with blood trickling from his temple. Luca took the stairs. Couldn't wait for the elevator. Climbed 40 flights with his heart hammering and his lungs burning. Reached his floor. The door to his penthouse was open. Silence inside. Luca pulled his gun. Entered slowly. The security team was down. 3 men unconscious or dead in the hallway. Professional hits. Quick. Clean. He moved through the apartment. Living room empty. Kitchen empty. Bedroom. Aurelia's phone sat on the nightstand. The bed was unmade from where they'd slept. But she was gone. A note sat on the pillow. Handwritten. Elegant script. She's alive. For now. If you want to see her again, come alone to the address below. You have 1 hour. Bring anyone else, and she dies. Tell the police, and she dies. Try to be a hero, and she dies. Just you. Just me. The way it should have been from the beginning. An address in Brooklyn. A warehouse district near the waterfront. Luca read the note 3 times. His hand shook so badly the paper rattled. This was it. The final confrontation. No backup. No plan. No guarantee he'd survive. Just him walking into a trap to save the woman he loved. He should call Marco. Should bring the full force of the organization down on this warehouse. Overwhelm them with numbers and firepower. But the note was clear. Come alone, or Aurelia dies. Luca grabbed his gun, checked the ammunition, grabbed a backup weapon and a knife. Then he walked out of his penthouse for what might be the last time. The warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end street near the Brooklyn waterfront, exactly like the note described. Old, abandoned, windows broken, chain-link fence rusted and falling apart. Perfect place for an execution. Luca parked a block away, approached on foot, gun tucked against his spine, knife strapped to his ankle. Every sense heightened, watching for ambush, for snipers, for any sign this was about to go very wrong. The front entrance was chained shut. He went around to the side, found a door propped open. Invitation. He stepped inside. Darkness. The smell of salt water and rust. Distant sound of water lapping against pilings. Hello, Luca. A woman's voice. Not mechanical this time. Real. Echoing through the empty space. Lights slammed on. Luca's eyes adjusted quickly. The warehouse was massive. Empty except for a metal chair in the center of the space. And sitting in that chair, zip-tied and gagged, was Aurelia. She looked terrified but alive. Her eyes locked on Luca immediately, trying to communicate something, warning him. Around the perimeter of the warehouse stood at least 20 armed men, all pointing weapons directly at him. And standing beside Aurelia was a woman Luca recognized from photos 3 years old, Isabella Marchetti. wife of the man he'd killed. She looked different now, harder, older, eyes that had seen too much pain. "Drop your weapon," Isabella said calmly. Luca hesitated. "Drop it, or I put a bullet in her head right now." Luca pulled the gun from his waistband, set it on the concrete floor, kicked it away. "The backup too." He removed the second gun, tossed it aside. "And the knife I know you have strapped to your ankle." Luca bent slowly, removed the blade, dropped it. "Good," Isabella said. "Now walk toward me, slowly." Luca moved forward, eyes never leaving Aurelia. She was crying, shaking her head frantically behind the gag, trying to tell him to run, but he couldn't run. Not without her. He stopped 10 feet from Isabella. "Do you remember me?" the woman asked. "Yes." "Do you remember my husband?" "Yes. His name was Michael. Michael Marchetti. We had 2 children, a daughter who was 6, a son who was 4. Michael worked for the Costello family handling their import business. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't violent, just a good man trying to provide for his family." Luca said nothing. "And you killed him," Isabella continued. Her voice stayed calm, but her eyes burned with hatred. "Because he tried to negotiate a better deal with the Costellos. Because he was doing his job. You walked into that warehouse and you executed everyone in that room except me. Left me alive to deliver your message." "I remember," Luca said quietly. "Do you know what happened after? What your message cost me?" "I can imagine." "No, you can't." Isabella's composure cracked slightly. "My children grew up without a father. I lost everything. The Costellos abandoned us. Other families wouldn't touch us because we'd been marked by you. I had to rebuild from nothing, alone, grieving, broken." She walked closer to Aurelia, placed a hand on the woman's shoulder. Aurelia flinched. "So I waited," Isabella said. 3 years. Watching, planning, waiting for you to care about something the way I cared about Michael. And then she appeared." She squeezed Aurelia's shoulder. "The great Luca Moretti falling in love, becoming weak, vulnerable." "Let her go," Luca said. "You want revenge? Take it out on me. Kill me. Make me suffer. But let her go." "Why would I do that?" "Because she's innocent. She had nothing to do with what happened to Michael. And Michael had nothing to do with your territory disputes. But you killed him anyway." Isabella pulled out a gun, pressed it against Aurelia's temple. Aurelia's eyes went wide, tears streamed down her face. "Please," Luca said, his voice cracked. "Please don't do this." "Beg," Isabella demanded, "the way I begged for Michael's life. Beg me to spare her." Luca dropped to his knees. "I'm begging you," he said. Hands spread, completely vulnerable. "I'm begging you to let her go. Kill me instead. Make it slow. Make it painful. Whatever you need. Just don't hurt her." Isabella stared down at him, seeing the feared Mafia king on his knees, broken, desperate. "This is what you turned me into," she said quietly. "A monster who would kill an innocent woman just to make you feel pain. Are you proud of that, Luca? Proud of what your empire created?" "No." "Good, because you're about to watch everything you love die, just like I did." She cocked the gun. Luca lunged forward, didn't think, didn't plan, just moved on pure instinct. Gunfire exploded through the warehouse, but not from Isabella's weapon. The skylights above shattered, ropes dropped, black-clad figures rappelled down from the ceiling. Marco's team. They'd followed him. Chaos erupted. Isabella's men opened fire. Marco's team returned shots. The warehouse became a war zone in seconds. Luca grabbed Aurelia's chair, tipped it backward, covered her body with his own as bullets sparked off concrete around them. He pulled the gag from her mouth. "Are you okay?" he gasped. "Luca, behind you." He turned. Isabella stood 3 feet away, gun raised, aimed directly at his head. "You brought backup," she said, "after I specifically told you to come alone." "I didn't." "Liar." Her finger tightened on the trigger. A gunshot. But not from Isabella's weapon. The bullet hit her in the shoulder. She stumbled sideways, dropped the gun. Luca looked up. Emma stood in the warehouse entrance, holding a pistol with shaking hands, face pale, eyes wide with shock at what she'd just done. Emma? Aurelia gasped. I followed the security team, Emma said. Her voice trembled. I couldn't let her take you too. Isabella clutched her bleeding shoulder, stared at Emma with disbelief. You... Marco's men had secured the warehouse. Isabella's crew was down or surrendering. The fight was over. Marco appeared beside Luca. You good, boss? Yeah, get her out of here. He gestured to Isabella. Two men grabbed the wounded woman, pulled her toward the exit. Isabella looked back at Luca one last time. This doesn't end. You can run, you can hide, but there will always be someone like me, someone you wronged, someone looking for revenge. I know, Luca said quietly, which is why I'm done. No more empire, no more violence, just me and the people I love, far away from all of this. Isabella laughed bitterly. Blood seeped between her fingers where she clutched her shoulder. You think you can escape what you are? You'll always be a killer, Luca. Always. They dragged her away. Luca turned to Aurelia, cut the zip ties binding her to the chair. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. I've got you, he whispered. I've got you. You're safe. She was going to kill me. I know. And you came anyway. Of course I came. Aurelia pulled back, looked up at him with devastated eyes. She was right. This is never going to end. There's always going to be someone looking for revenge, always going to be danger. Then we leave tonight, right now. We disappear so completely that no one can find us. Can we really do that? We have to try. Emma approached them slowly, still holding the gun like it might explode. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. She was going to... Aurelia pulled her cousin into a fierce hug. You saved my life. I was so scared. I know, but you did it anyway. You're so brave. Luca looked at Marco. The underboss stood apart from his men, watching, waiting. Thank you, Luca said, for following me even though I told you not to. You're still my boss, Marco replied. Until you're on a plane out of this city, you're my responsibility. Not anymore. This is it. After tonight, you're in charge completely. Understood. They stood there for a moment. Then Marco extended his hand one final time. Good luck, Luca. You're going to need it. Thanks, Marco, for everything. They shook. Then Luca turned to Aurelia and Emma. We're leaving, right now. Don't pack, don't go home. We get in a car and we drive until we hit the airport. Then we get on the first plane heading west. Agree? Both women nodded. Okay. Luca took Aurelia's hand. Let's go build that life we talked about. They walked out of the warehouse into the cool Brooklyn night. Behind them, the empire crumbled. Ahead, the future waited. Uncertain, dangerous, unknown. But together. And for Luca Moretti, that was enough. The car drove west through the night, while Manhattan disappeared in the rearview mirror like a bad dream fading at dawn. Luca sat in the back seat with Aurelia pressed against his side. Her hand gripped his so tightly, her knuckles had gone white. Emma sat on her other side, staring out the window with eyes that had seen too much violence in too short a time. None of them spoke. Words felt inadequate for what they'd just survived. Marco had arranged everything, a driver, cash. 3 tickets on a red-eye flight to Los Angeles, leaving in 4 hours. New identities waiting at the airport. Clean break, no trail. The plan was simple. Get on the plane, disappear. Start over somewhere the past couldn't reach them. But as the city lights faded behind them, Luca felt the weight of everything he'd done settling into his bones. Every death, every threat, every violent choice that had brought them to this moment. Isabella Marchetti's words echoed in his head. You'll always be a killer, Luca. Always. Was she right? Could he really walk away from what he was? Or would the violence follow him no matter how far he ran? Aurelia shifted against him, looked up with exhausted eyes. What are you thinking about? She asked quietly. Whether I can actually do this. Do what? Be someone different, someone who doesn't solve problems with violence. She was quiet for a moment, then said, You already are someone different. The man I fell in love with isn't a killer. He's someone who chose to save people instead of destroying them, who walked away from power because love mattered more. I shot Tony Romano tonight, put 3 bullets in him. To protect me, to protect Emma. That's not the same as what you used to do, isn't it? Aurelia sat up, turned to face him fully. The old Luca Moretti would have killed Tony, would have killed Isabella, would have burned down half the city to prove a point. But you didn't. You showed mercy even when you had every reason not to. That's how I know you can do this, how I know you're already doing it. Luca searched her face, looking for doubt, for fear, for any sign she was lying to make him feel better. But all he saw was conviction. I'm scared, he admitted, of who I'll be without the empire, without the power. You'll be the man I love, and that's more than enough. Emma spoke up from the other side of Aurelia. Can I say something? They both looked at her. I shot someone tonight, Emma said. Her voice was small, uncertain. I picked up a gun, and I shot Isabella Marchetti, and I don't know how to feel about that. Aurelia reached for her cousin's hand. You saved my life. I know. But I keep seeing her face, the way she looked when the bullet hit, like she couldn't believe it. And I keep thinking, what if I killed her? What if she dies because of me? She won't, Luca said quietly. The bullet hit her shoulder. Not fatal. She'll survive. Probably end up in prison with the Romanos. But I could have killed her, and part of me, Emma's voice cracked, part of me wanted to. When I saw her holding that gun to Aurelia's head, I wanted her dead. Is that normal? Does that make me a bad person? It makes you human, Luca said. It makes you someone who loves your family enough to protect them. That's not bad. That's survival. Is that what you told yourself all those years, that you were just surviving? The question landed like a punch. Luca met Emma's eyes, saw the challenge there, the need for honest answers. No, he said. I told myself I was building something, creating order from chaos. But the truth is I liked the power, liked the control. It wasn't survival, it was choice. And I made a lot of wrong choices. So how do you live with it? I don't know yet. I'm still figuring that out. Emma nodded slowly. Well, when you figure it out, let me know, because I have no idea how to sleep tonight knowing what I did. You sleep knowing you saved someone you love, Aurelia said gently. You sleep knowing you were brave when it mattered most, and you sleep knowing we're all going to help each other through this. The car pulled up outside the airport terminal. The driver, one of Marco's most trusted men, turned to look at them. This is as far as I go, he said. Your tickets are waiting at the United counter. Names are Morgan, Hayes, and Chen. Memorize them. Don't use your real names again until you're far away from here. Luca nodded. Thank you. Marco says to tell you good luck, and that if you ever need anything, you know how to reach him. Tell him I appreciate everything he did. Tell him to take care of the people who depend on the organization. Will do, boss. They climbed out of the car, grabbed the small bags Marco had prepared for them, watched the vehicle disappear into late-night traffic. Then Luca turned to look at the terminal. Bright lights, people rushing through sliding doors, normal lives, normal problems. He was about to become one of them. The thought was terrifying. Ready? Aurelia asked. Luca took her hand, then reached for Emma's. The three of them stood there, connected. A strange new family forged in violence and held together by love. Yeah, Luca said. Let's go. They walked into the terminal, left Luca Moretti behind, became Michael Morgan and the two women he was traveling with. Nobody recognized them. Nobody cared. For the first time in 20 years, Luca was invisible, and it felt like breathing for the first time. The flight to Los Angeles took 6 hours. Luca didn't sleep, just stared out the window watching darkness give way to dawn over the mountains below. Aurelia dozed against his shoulder. Emma sat across the aisle, reading the safety card over and over, like she was memorizing scripture. When they finally landed, California sunshine hit them like a wall of warmth. Different air, different smell, different world entirely. Marco had arranged temporary housing, a rental house in Santa Monica, small, quiet, 3 blocks from the beach. They'd have a month to find permanent residence while the new identities solidified and the last traces of their old lives disappeared. The house was exactly what Marco promised. Modest, unremarkable, the kind of place nobody looked twice at. Emma claimed the smallest bedroom, said she needed space to think. Aurelia and Luca took the master bedroom overlooking a small yard with overgrown grass and a lemon tree. That first night, they ordered pizza and sat on the back porch watching the sun set over the Pacific. None of them said much, just existed together in the quiet. Eventually, Emma went to bed. Luca and Aurelia stayed outside listening to the ocean in the distance. "Do you miss it?" Aurelia asked. "The Empire?" Luca thought about it. Really thought about it. "I miss the certainty," he said finally. "Knowing exactly who I was, what I was capable of. Having that kind of power meant never being afraid. And now? Now I'm terrified every second, but in a different way. Not afraid of losing power. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of failing at this new life. Afraid I won't be enough without the Empire propping me up." Aurelia turned to look at him. "You were always enough, Luca. The Empire was just armor. Underneath it was always just a man trying to survive. What if the man underneath isn't worth loving? Then I wouldn't love him. But I do. So that answers your question." She leaned against him. Luca wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They sat there until the stars came out, and the temperature dropped, and the distant sound of the ocean became the only thing that mattered. The first week was strange. They established routines. Coffee in the morning, walks on the beach. Emma found a part-time job at a bookstore. Aurelia started looking at community college courses. Luca spent hours just sitting in coffee shops, watching people live normal lives and wondering if he'd ever feel normal. He called Marco once, just to make sure the transition was going smoothly. "Everything's fine, boss," Marco reported. "The family's accepted me taking over. No major problems. Your name still carries weight, but people are starting to understand you're really gone." "And Tony Romano? Isabella Marchetti? Both in custody. District attorney is building cases. They'll be locked up for a long time." "Good. How are you doing? You adjusting okay?" Luca looked around the coffee shop. Students on laptops, mothers with strollers, old men reading newspapers, normal people living normal lives. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "Ask me in a month." "Fair enough. Call if you need anything." "Thanks, Marco, for everything." He hung up feeling unmoored, like a ship without an anchor drifting in open water. That night, Aurelia found him sitting on the back porch staring at nothing. "Talk to me," she said. "I don't know how to do this," Luca said. "How to be normal. How to exist without purpose." "So find a new purpose." "Like what?" "I don't know. Something that matters to you. Something that helps people instead of hurting them. I've only ever known how to build and destroy. I don't know how to just be." Aurelia sat beside him. "Then learn. We'll figure it out together." "What if I can't?" "Then we'll fail together, but at least we'll fail trying to be better instead of staying who we were." Luca looked at her. At this woman who'd seen the absolute worst of him and still chose to stay. Who believed in a version of him that might not even exist. "Why do you have so much faith in me?" he asked. "Because I've seen who you become when you love someone, and that person is worth believing in." She kissed him, soft, certain, full of promise. And for the first time since leaving New York, Luca felt like maybe, he could actually do this. 3 months passed. Luca found work doing security consulting for small businesses. Nothing violent, just helping people protect their assets. Turned out 20 years of criminal experience translated well to understanding vulnerabilities. The work was boring, tedious, nothing like running an empire. But it was honest. Aurelia enrolled in college, started taking business courses, said she wanted to open her own consulting firm eventually. Something legitimate that helped people navigate complicated corporate structures. Emma went to therapy twice a week, worked through the trauma of what she'd experienced, slowly started sleeping through the night again. They built a life. Quiet. Small. Nothing like what they'd left behind. One evening in early December, Luca came home to find Aurelia sitting on the couch with papers spread across the coffee table. She looked up when he entered. "I have something to tell you," she said. Luca's stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I found something today." She handed him a newspaper article. Local Los Angeles paper. Small story on the back page. Local woman opens foundation for children of incarcerated parents. The article featured a photo of Isabella Marchetti. She looked different, softer, standing with a group of children outside a community center. Luca read quickly. Isabella had been sentenced to 8 years for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, But before going to prison, she'd used her remaining resources to establish a foundation providing support for children whose parents were serving time. Children like her own kids had been after Luca killed their father. She turned her pain into something that helps people, Aurelia said quietly. She could have died bitter and angry. Instead, she found a way to make meaning from tragedy. Luca stared at the article, at the woman who'd almost killed Aurelia, who'd spent 3 years planning revenge, now redirecting that energy towards something constructive. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. "Because I think it's possible to come from darkness and build something good. She did it. You can too." "I'm not looking for redemption, Aurelia. I'm not talking about redemption. I'm talking about purpose, about taking everything you learned from that old life and using it to help people instead of hurting them." Luca set down the article. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you stop hiding. Stop pretending you're someone you're not. You were a king, Luca. You built an empire. You understood power and strategy better than anyone. Those skills don't have to be wasted just because you're not using them for crime anymore." "What would I even do?" "I don't know, but I know sitting in coffee shops watching other people live isn't working for you. You need something bigger, something that challenges you." She was right. The past 3 months had been peaceful but hollow. Luca missed the weight of responsibility, missed solving complex problems, missed mattering. "Let me think about it," he said. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." That night, Luca couldn't sleep. He went for a walk on the beach, stood at the water's edge watching waves crash against the shore. For years, he'd defined himself by power, by fear, by the empire he'd built on violence and control. But that was gone now. So who was he without it? A man who loved a woman, a man trying to be better, a man learning to build instead of destroy. Maybe that was enough. He walked back to the house, found Aurelia still awake reading in bed. "I have an idea," he said. She looked up. "Tell me, what if we started something together? A real business? Something that helps people who are trying to leave bad situations, people trapped in cycles they can't escape." "What kind of business?" "I don't know exactly, but I know there are people out there like I was. People who built their lives on things they're not proud of and don't know how to walk away. What if we created pathways for them? Legitimate opportunities, second chances." Aurelia set down her book. "You want to help criminals go straight. I want to help people trapped by their circumstances find better options. Same thing you're studying, same thing I'm learning. We could combine our skills, build something meaningful." She stared at him. "That's actually brilliant." "You think?" "I think it's exactly what you need. Purpose, direction, a way to use everything you learned for good instead of destruction." Luca sat on the edge of the bed. "It wouldn't be easy. Most people won't succeed. The recidivism rate for people leaving criminal organizations is terrible. But some will. And even if we only help a few people find better lives, isn't that worth it?" He thought about Marco, about the men who'd worked for him over the years, about the kids growing up in neighborhoods where crime was the only visible path to success, about who he might have become if someone had shown him another way. "Yeah," he said quietly, "it's worth it." Aurelia pulled him down beside her. "Then let's do it, together." They lay there in the darkness making plans, discussing possibilities, building something new from the wreckage of what they'd left behind. And for the first time since walking away from the empire, Luca felt like he'd found solid ground. 6 months later, they officially launched Second Chances Consulting. Small operation, just Luca, Aurelia, and 2 part-time employees. They worked with people trying to transition from criminal enterprises to legitimate business, provided job training, resume building, interview coaching, connections to employers willing to give people with complicated pasts a chance. The work was hard. Most of their clients failed, old habits died hard, and the pull of easy money was strong. But some succeeded. A former drug dealer opened a landscaping company. An ex-enforcer started a security firm. A woman who'd run an illegal gambling operation became a financial advisor. Each success felt like redemption. Luca hadn't known he needed. One afternoon, a new client walked into their small office in downtown Los Angeles. Young kid, maybe 22, covered in gang tattoos, eyes that had seen too much violence too young. Luca recognized that look, had worn it himself once. I want out, the kid said, but I don't know how. Everyone I know is in the life. If I leave, they'll think I'm a snitch. If I stay, I'm dead by 30. What's your name? Luca asked. Marcus. Okay, Marcus. Here's the truth. Walking away is the hardest thing you'll ever do. You'll lose friends, lose respect, lose the sense of power and belonging that gang life provides. And there's no guarantee the legitimate world will accept you. Marcus's shoulders slumped. So why bother? Because there's a chance, Luca said. A chance to build something real that no one can take away from you. A chance to be proud of who you become instead of ashamed of who you were. And if you're willing to work for it, really work, we'll help you find that chance. The kid looked up. Hope flickered in his eyes. You really think I can do it? I think if I can do it, anyone can. And I was deeper in than you'll ever be. They spent the next 2 hours mapping out a plan. Job training, GED courses, interview practice, connections to employers who worked with their program. When Marcus left, he looked different, straighter, more certain. Aurelia appeared in the doorway. You were good with him. I know what he's going through. I know. That's what makes you good at this. She walked over and wrapped her arms around him from behind. You found your purpose. We found our purpose, Luca corrected. I couldn't do this without you. Sure you could, but it's better together. Everything's better together. She kissed his neck. How did I get so lucky? To find someone who loves me enough to give up an empire? I'm the lucky one. You saw something worth saving when everyone else just saw a monster. You were never a monster, Luca. Just someone who needed a reason to be better. They stood there in their small office overlooking the Los Angeles skyline. So different from the Manhattan view Luca had commanded for years. Smaller, quieter, but somehow more real. A year after leaving New York, Luca woke up to Aurelia making breakfast in their kitchen. She hummed softly while scrambling eggs. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The smell of coffee filled the air. Normal, peaceful, real. Morning, he said. She turned and smiled. Morning. I made the good coffee. You spoil me. You deserve to be spoiled. Luca walked over and wrapped his arms around her waist, pulled her back against his chest. Have I told you lately that I love you? Not since last night. Well, I do. More than anything. She turned in his arms, looked up at him with those eyes that had seen all of him, the violence, the fear, the desperate love, and chosen to stay anyway. I love you too, she said. Even though you still make terrible coffee and forget to buy groceries and have nightmares about the past sometimes. The nightmares are getting better. I know, you're getting better. Every day. She kissed him. Luca held her close and thought about everything they'd survived. The jealousy, the violence, the empire crumbling, the decision to walk away. All of it had led here. To this kitchen, this woman, this life. Emma appeared in the doorway. Are you two always this disgustingly in love? Pretty much, Aurelia said. Get used to it. I've been living with you for a year. I am used to it. Doesn't make it less gross. But she was smiling. The haunted look that had lived in her eyes after the warehouse had finally faded. Therapy had helped. Time had helped. Building a new life far from the violence had helped. They all bore scars, but they were healing. I have news, Emma announced. I got accepted to UCLA. Full scholarship. Aurelia gasped. Emma, that's amazing. I know. I start in the fall. Psychology program. Figured after everything we've been through, I might as well get a degree in understanding trauma. Luca smiled. You'll be great at it. Thanks. And Luca. Emma's expression turned serious. I never thanked you properly for saving Aurelia, for getting us out of that life, for giving me a chance to be someone other than the girl who got kidnapped by the mob. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You gave up everything for us. That matters. I didn't give up anything that mattered. I traded power I didn't need for people I couldn't live without. Best decision I ever made. Emma nodded, wiped at her eyes. Okay, enough feelings. I'm going to class. See you tonight. She grabbed her bag and left. Aurelia and Luca stood in the kitchen listening to the door close. Then Aurelia said quietly, "She's right, you did give up everything. And I'd do it again. Even knowing how hard it would be, how much you'd struggle to find yourself again. Especially knowing that. Because the struggle means I'm alive, means I'm choosing who I want to be instead of being trapped by who I was." Aurelia traced her fingers along his jaw. "Who do you want to be?" "Yours. That's all I've ever wanted since the moment I saw you laughing in that restaurant. The night you got jealous and followed me. My finest moment. Your most unhinged moment." Same thing. She laughed. That sound Luca had fallen in love with. The sound he'd burned down an empire to protect. "Come on," she said. "We have 3 clients this morning. We should get ready. Or we could stay here. Luca, I'm serious. We could call in, say we're sick, spend the day doing absolutely nothing." "You never want to do nothing. You're the most driven person I know." "I'm learning to be less driven. To appreciate moments instead of always chasing the next thing." Aurelia considered, then smiled. "Okay, let's call in. Let's be irresponsible for one day." They spent the morning on the beach, walking barefoot in the sand, talking about everything and nothing, planning their future, remembering their past without letting it define them. In the afternoon, they drove to a small diner Emma had recommended, sat in a corner booth eating burgers and fries like normal people on a normal date, because that's what they were now. Normal. "Do you ever think about going back?" Aurelia asked. "To New York, just to visit?" Luca thought about it. The city had been his kingdom, his prison, his entire world for so long. "Maybe someday," he said, "when enough time has passed that it feels like visiting someone else's life instead of my own." "Do you think Marco's doing okay? Running everything?" "I think Marco's doing great. He was always better at the political side than I was, more patient, more willing to compromise." "And you don't miss it? The power?" "I miss the certainty, miss knowing exactly how to solve every problem, but I don't miss the weight. Don't miss carrying that empire on my shoulders every second of every day." "What do you miss?" Luca was quiet for a moment, really thinking about it. "I miss the version of you that worked for me," he admitted. "The sharp, untouchable executive assistant who ran my world with terrifying efficiency. That version of you was already perfect. And this version? This version is real, messy, makes mistakes, gets scared sometimes. And I love this version more than I thought possible to love anything." Aurelia's eyes filled with tears. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't. I just tell you the truth and hope it's enough. It's always enough." They finished lunch, drove home through golden afternoon light. The city spread before them full of possibility and second chances. That night they lay in bed with the windows open, cool ocean breeze drifting through, distant sound of waves. "Luca?" Aurelia said softly. "Yeah?" "Do you think we'll make it, long term?" "I think we already made it. Everything else is just living. I mean, do you think we'll stay this happy, or will we eventually resent each other for the lives we gave up?" Luca rolled onto his side to look at her. "I will never resent you, never regret choosing you. Whatever happens, whatever challenges we face, I'm in this completely. Forever. Forever's a long time. Not long enough." She smiled, reached for his hand, laced their fingers together. "I love you, Luca Moretti. Or Michael Morgan. Or whoever you decide to be tomorrow. I love you too, Aurelia Hayes, former assistant, current partner, future wife." She froze. "What?" Luca sat up, reached into the nightstand drawer, pulled out a small box he'd been hiding for 2 weeks. "I was going to wait," he said. "Make it romantic. Plan some big gesture. But I realized I don't need grand gestures anymore. I just need you to know that I want forever. Real forever. Not the kind built on empires and fear. The kind built on mornings in the kitchen and walks on the beach and helping people find second chances." He opened the box. A simple ring. Silver band, small diamond. Nothing ostentatious. Real. "Marry me," Luca said. "Not because it makes sense or because we've been through hell together. Marry me because I can't imagine a single day of my life without you in it. Because you're the reason I'm still breathing. The reason I learned what love actually means. Aurelia stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, yes. Luca slipped the ring onto her finger, pulled her close, kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying. I can't believe you proposed in bed, Aurelia laughed through the tears. Would you have preferred the beach? A fancy restaurant? No, this is perfect. This is us, real and messy and perfect. They held each other in the darkness. Two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from the wreckage. Outside, the ocean kept rolling. The city kept breathing. The world kept spinning. And inside their small house in Santa Monica, Luca Moretti, formerly the most feared man in Manhattan, now just a man in love, finally found the peace he'd been searching for his entire life. 6 months later, they got married on the beach at sunset. Small ceremony, just Emma. Marco flew in from New York, a few clients from Second Chances who'd become friends, the chaplain who ran the community center where they volunteered. No press, no spectacle, no remnants of the empire, just love. Aurelia wore a simple white dress. Luca wore a suit Emma picked out. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. I promise to choose you every day, Luca said, even when it's hard, even when old ghosts come calling. I promise to be the man you see in me instead of the monster I used to be. I promise to build a life worthy of your love. I promise to believe in you, Aurelia said, even when you doubt yourself. I promise to remind you who you've become when the past tries to claim you. I promise to walk beside you wherever this life takes us. They kissed as husband and wife while the sun set over the Pacific and their small gathering applauded. At the reception, a barbecue in their backyard, Marco pulled Luca aside. You look happy, boss. I am, happier than I've ever been. The organization's doing well, if you're curious. We've transitioned almost completely out of the illegal operations. Few more months and we'll be totally legitimate. That's good to hear. You ever think about coming back, even just as a consultant? Luca looked across the yard at Aurelia. She was laughing with Emma and some of their clients, radiant, alive, free. No, Luca said. That life is over. This is where I belong now. Marco nodded. Then I'm happy for you. You earned this peace. We all did, you included. Thank you for making the transition work. It's what you would have done. They shook hands. Then Marco left to catch his flight back to New York. Luca stood in his backyard watching his wife dance with her cousin, watching the sun sink below the horizon, watching the life he'd built from ashes and hope and desperate love. This was it. This was everything. No empire, no power, no fear, just a man and a woman who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk into the light together. Aurelia caught his eye across the yard, smiled, gestured for him to join her. Luca walked over, took her hand, pulled her close. Having fun, Mrs. Morgan? He asked. The best time. You? Best day of my life. Better than running Manhattan? Not even close. This is real. That was just survival dressed up as power. She rested her head against his chest. They swayed together even though the music had stopped. What do you think happens next? Aurelia asked. We keep building, keep helping people, keep learning how to be better. Sounds simple. The best things usually are. They danced in their backyard as the stars came out and their friends celebrated around them. Two people who'd survived the impossible, who'd walked through fire and come out the other side holding hands, who'd learned that love wasn't weakness. It was the strongest thing in the world. And as Luca held his wife under the California stars, he finally understood the truth that had eluded him for 34 years. Power could build empires, but only love could build a life worth living. He'd been a king, now he was just a man, and that was more than enough. 8. 5 years later. Luca stood in the conference room of Second Chances Consulting, looking out at 20 staff members. The organization had grown beyond anything he'd imagined. Multiple locations across California, partnerships with correctional facilities, a success rate that made national news. They'd helped hundreds of people leave criminal life behind, built careers, restored families, created futures where none had existed. Aurelia sat at the head of the table running the quarterly meeting. She'd become the face of the organization while Luca worked behind the scenes. Preferred it that way. Liked being invisible. Liked letting her shine. Our numbers are up 40%, Aurelia reported. We've placed 63 clients in full-time employment this quarter. Retention rate is holding steady at 72%. Applause around the table. We're also launching a new program next month, she continued, working with children of incarcerated parents, providing mentorship and educational support, breaking the cycle before it starts. More applause. Luca caught her eye, smiled. She smiled back. After the meeting, they walked to their car together. Luca drove now. Aurelia navigated. Perfect team. Good meeting, he said. Great numbers. You should be proud. We should be proud. I am. Every day. They drove home to the house they'd bought 2 years ago. Bigger than the rental. Room for the family they were building. Emma's car was in the driveway. She'd graduated from UCLA with honors. Now worked as a counselor specializing in trauma recovery. Lived in her own apartment but visited often. Inside, Emma sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. Hey guys, how was work? Productive, Aurelia said. You? Same. I'm working on a research paper about recovery from complex trauma. Think I might submit it for publication. That's amazing, Luca said. Emma looked up at him. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret it? Giving up the empire? Walking away from all that power? Luca thought about it. The question came up less and less as the years passed, but when it did, the answer was always the same. No, he said, not for a second. That life was killing me slowly. This life saved me. Even though it's harder? Less certain? Especially because of that. Certainty built on violence isn't real security. It's just delayed destruction. He looked at Aurelia. This is real. This matters. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Emma nodded. Good. Because you two give me hope that people can actually change. That it's possible to escape your past and become someone better. It's possible, Aurelia said, but it takes work. Every single day. And people who love you enough to believe you can do it. That night, after Emma left and the house was quiet, Luca and Aurelia sat on their back porch watching the stars. Do you think we made a difference, Aurelia asked, in the grand scheme of things? I think we made a difference to the people we helped, and that's enough. Is it though? There are so many people still trapped, so many lives we couldn't reach. We can't save everyone, Aurelia. We can only do what we can do, and we've done more than I ever thought possible. She leaned against him. I love you, you know that? I know. I love you too. No regrets? Only that I didn't find you sooner, that I wasted so many years being someone I'm not proud of. Those years made you who you are, made this possible. Maybe. Or maybe I just got lucky. Met the right person at the right time and she was crazy enough to believe in me. Aurelia laughed. Definitely crazy, but also definitely right. They sat there until the night air turned cold and the stars blurred together. Then they went inside. To their home. Their life. Their future. Built not on fear or power or violence, but on love. The kind of love that transforms. The kind that saves. The kind worth burning down an empire to protect. And as Luca locked the doors and turned off the lights and climbed into bed beside his wife, he thought about the scared, violent man he used to be. The king who ruled through fear. The monster who thought power was everything. That man was dead. In his place stood someone better, someone real, someone who'd learned the hardest lesson of all. That the truest strength isn't in how much you can control. It's in what you're willing to give up for the people you love. Luca Moretti had been many things, criminal, king, monster. But in the end, he was just a man who fell in love. And that love changed everything.